Still committed to achieving a zero COVID policy there and in many other cities across the country. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with a shooting on a subway car. A group of around 40 countries is to ask the United Nations to hold member states accountable if they veto resolutions at the Security Council. Finland's Prime Minister has promised a decision on whether to join NATO will come within weeks.
The Subway restaurant chain has reacted with shock this week after executives discovered that many customers are apparently purchasing footlong sandwiches and eating the entire 12 inches by themselves. A spokesperson for the company addressed reporters this morning.
This is not how our products are intended to be consumed. Our footlong subs have always been meant to be shared among 2 or more friends. Eating an entire foot of food shouldn't be possible for most people, but they've been doing it somehow, and it needs to stop.
To encourage healthier eating habits, Subway is clarifying its marketing, adjusting language on menus and in television commercials like this one.
$5 footlongs? Wow, that's $2.50 per person.
Subway's corporate leadership says they were horrified to learn of the misunderstanding.
It's frightening. I mean, you don't see people eating entire pizzas by themselves. We even cut the footlongs in half into 2 regular-sized sandwiches before handing them to you. But I guess that wasn't clear enough.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves. 603-283-6160. That's the call line if you'd like to weigh in with your thoughts and opinions. Talk about whatever is important to you. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And there was some news yesterday that, happened, but there wasn't a whole lot to really talk about beyond the fact that it had happened, and that was the New York City subway shooting. I don't know the details of even what happened because, we were doing the show, as I understood it, as news about this was really coming out. I don't know what the timeline was like, but it wasn't like we were full up with show prep about the New York City shooting yesterday.
Bonnie and I looked at some stuff last night.
And we determined it was fake.
I don't
fake,
know.
really?
I don't know.
Okay, fill me in.
Well, there's definitely, as you might imagine, every time something happens, there's always a conspiracy theory saying that it was completely cooked up by the government or the powers that be or whatever.
But usually I just assume that. This time there was videos of super weird things, like somebody spreading blood on the ground. Why would somebody do that?
Really?
That's not clear in the video. That's what the paranoid person who made the video had to say about it.
It looks like it's me. And there's also this lady that was down in the place where the subway was with the same person's shoes, so you know that's her.
This is the most interesting part.
She runs out of the subway, she runs back 2 minutes later.
She's one of the first people out of the train.
Okay.
So there's a video that this guy played where somebody's taking video. The person taking video steps off the train. They're like one of the first people off.
So when you say this person taking video, it's just someone with their cell phone, right?
I presume.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're stepping off the train. They then immediately turn to watch the car behind them's door as a bunch of people pile out. There's smoke coming out because the guy allegedly set a smoke bomb off before he started shooting. And as people are coming out, this woman that you're describing, Bonnie, some sort of we're not sure if she's black or...
She's really
racially
ambiguous. I don't think she's black. She's like, you can't really tell what
maybe
she
Puerto
has.
Rican or something like that.
She has an ambiguous face in general, like she could be anyone.
She comes out and she's very easily identifiable because of what she's got a brown purse that she's carrying. She's dressed in this black overcoat.
Clunky, high-heeled shoes that are almost like wedges, but not really.
And she hurries out of the train and goes past the cameraman. And then a few moments later, and I don't know how long it is, but some amount of time later, she comes back into the frame.
Are you going to run back into a smoke bomb when you don't know what that substance is?
Not just a smoke bomb, but where there's apparently a man shooting people at some point. So rather than exit the scene and run away, she comes back and starts taking video.
Kind of casually, too.
And then turns around and leaves again. Then she shows up and she looks fine, right? Like she's not limping, she's not being assisted or anything like that.
She's calm.
She's spry. She's moving quick. And then
there are a lot of people, like when a building burned down recently here in Keene, there were a lot of people who were like hanging out in the bar as it was filling up with smoke and people hanging out outside, and they were just taking videos of it. I mean, these things ended up going viral on the internet. Hey guys, if fire alarms are going off and the room is filling up with smoke,
sure,
don't be that idiot standing there taking a video. Get out. So, I mean, I can understand why this lady, if all she saw was smoke, she would be inclined to,
but she was in the car.
But it's weirder than that. If it was just that, Aria, I wouldn't even really have thought it was weird at all.
That's just part one.
Part two is what makes it weird. Later, she's out on the street, on the ground level.
So she's in multiple different videos at multiple different times.
We didn't see video of her on the street, but there probably is that. There were photographs taken of her on the street. And this same woman who was like obviously not injured in any way, shape, or form later shows up like laid up against I don't know, she's sitting up against something.
She's laid on the ground like she's injured, and then she's being taken in on a gurney to the ambulance.
An actual stretcher for some reason.
Weird.
Yeah, it's really weird.
That is a peculiar thing. I have not seen any of this, right? I didn't follow it closely. I didn't follow it at all beyond seeing the news today that the suspect here, Frank James, was 62 years old, and he's been posting unhinged, race-obsessed YouTube clips warning of his intentions and hatred for Mayor Eric Adams. Who is that?
That's the new mayor.
That's the new mayor. Now, this sort of bothers me because the reason I've seen this more today than I did yesterday is because I have a lot of libertarian friends on social media, and a lot of them are asking, why wasn't this guy already caught? Why wasn't he in trouble with the police already or anything like that? You have people saying, but he was investigated by the FBI. How was he able to do something like this? And we saw this exact same thing happen back in the Orlando shooting when the guy who did that.
You talking about the nightclub shooting?
Yes, where the guy shot up the gay bar.
Yeah.
He had been investigated by the FBI prior, but they ended up releasing him, and people asked the same question. How is it that this person who was investigated by the FBI ends up doing this mass shooting? Well, being investigated by the FBI has never been evidence of guilt.
Yep.
Right? Just because you've been investigated doesn't mean they take away your right to bear arms forever.
No, it's evidence of the FBI is incompetent, right?
Yeah, you would think, if everything they're saying about this guy is true, and he was actually planning to go and shoot up a subway, that would be more important to the FBI than helping some hillbillies in Michigan plot the kidnapping of Governor Whitner.
Now, isn't he considered a quote-unquote person of interest? Or have they charged him with
They
anything?
upgraded him to suspect, as I understand it.
It would be helpful if his YouTube videos where he was ranting online were still there, but they were taken away. So now I don't even know how to judge were his YouTube videos hatefully, racially motivated, or does he just mention this is my life as a black man? They can say anything they want because they deleted his videos.
Well, they deleted his videos, but
YouTube did. They took the channel down for violation of terms of service.
As Ian pointed out, anybody with a brain when they realized this person was a person of interest, and if they cared to, they would have downloaded a full archive of his videos and uploaded them to their channel, or even better, put them on Odyssey where they can't be deleted, because now the people who did that, they're just going to have their own YouTube channels deleted.
Well, we should clarify. Odyssey technically can delist a video, but if you upload through library, then in theory it is completely protected. Right. So Odyssey's a platform just like YouTube. I suspect, though, that Odyssey would make the choice to not take this man's channel down, because this happens every single time, by the way. Every time that there's some killer, some crazy shooter who has a YouTube channel or a Facebook profile or a Twitter or whatever we're talking about, every time the word gets out that they have one of these social media or media profiles, the company that runs that site goes and takes it down. And it's like, that doesn't help anything. That actually harms any amount of transparency for people being able to have some understanding of what this person did and not just rely on the mainstream media and their reports to get your opinions about what this man believed. I mean, because we can read report after report of what he allegedly said on his videos, but actually finding that video, finding a link to it, is very, very difficult. They are out there,
I mean,
however.
that's
and
the opposite of what the media wants, right? It's for us to be able to actually look at this guy, find out what he actually stood for, what his beliefs actually were. They want us to just trust the media when they tell us.
Yeah.
So you were able to still find them.
Yeah, I found them by searching for his username, Prophet of Truth 88.
From what I can tell, almost there's probably none of them that can be played on the air.
Yeah.
Well, they're just long. I mean, they're your typical kind of rambling 40, 50-plus minute long videos of a
And he's
person.
Prophet of Truth?
Prophet of Truth.
See,
88.
that's never good. One of the more successful things I ever did when trolling was I ran this fundamentalist Christian blog called Messenger of Truth, where I accused Barack Obama of being a gay, socialist, antichrist Muslim, and just all sorts of nonsense like that, right? It was very successful, right? People loved it, and after like 6 months of it, I got bored, and I was like, okay, guys, you know, you've been following this content now for a while. You should know I'm an atheist, and if you took any of this seriously, you need help. So this guy calling himself something that's almost identical to that is automatically a bad sign.
There was this guy that my mom would listen to, and I'm not going to remember his name right now, just some Christian online guy when I was a kid, and he prophesied this thing would happen in this certain year, and it didn't happen. And then I asked my mom, isn't he a false prophet then because it didn't come true? And she said, oh, it's just, we stopped it by our prayers and all this stuff. So there's all kinds of excuses they make up.
Absolutely true. There's more about this guy because even if he's not the shooter, he's interesting and worth talking about. What are your thoughts on all of this, though? 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correa, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to take control of the airwaves and talk about whatever is important to you. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And Bonnie.
Talking about the New York City subway shooting, evidently suspect Frank James has been arrested, and there are a lot of people hurrying to proclaim his guilt. We were just listening to a YouTuber rattling on, calling this guy, a real piece of work, basically, alleging that the guy is 100% guilty. And, I have not seen the videos. It may be clear once you compare the two that, yes, this is the guy they're talking about.
I don't know if there's video of the actual shooting. If there is, I have not seen it. The video that we saw last night was just of people exiting the train.
So I want to make sure I understand this right, because I haven't seen any of these videos. So what you have is a train arrives at a station, right? Mm-hmm. The first compartment opens, a guy gets off, and he starts filming, presumably because he realizes that there's some sort of commotion happening in the compartment behind them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then that compartment opens up. I guess they don't open all at once or whatever. Or maybe he's just in a hurry to get out and start filming. So smoke rolls out of this other compartment, presumably, right?
I think all the doors open at the same time, but it's been a while since I've been on the subway in New York City.
And then out comes a bunch of people, but among them is this weird lady who you described as being ethnically ambiguous. She could basically be anyone, you said, except for her. Her attire is unique, presumably.
Yes.
And that's how you kept identity, even though she looked like she could be just anyone, and there was nothing remarkable about her. Her outfit was weird.
Yeah, maybe multiple people could play the same woman who looked like her.
But they would have to have that specific
lady.
outfit.
Yeah, I mean, she was definitely the same lady. It's just that it's really weird that she seemed totally fine and then ended up on a stretcher later on when, you get photos coming from upstairs. And maybe it's one of those things where they're just being overcautious. Oh, you inhaled smoke, so we need to take you to the hospital. I mean, it is New York City, so it wouldn't surprise me if they were just super overcautious with that sort of thing.
Yeah, but how would they know? Unless the woman approached them and was like, hey, I was on that train with that guy.
Yeah.
I need to go to the hospital, which I guess she could have been.
I mean,
but the allegation is that the guy threw a smoke grenade or something, filled the place up with smoke, and then opened fire,
So the allegation,
right?
specifically from what I've read, according to supposed witnesses, Frank James was dressed in, and there is video of him, by the way, entering there's subway security camera video of him going through checkpoints or whatever, where he's wearing like an orange vest or something, or like a bright colored vest. I think the footage is black and white, but he had one of those construction worker kind of vests, city worker look.
Something to make himself easily visible.
Yes.
Or perhaps an accomplice in a room that was filled with smoke.
And look official. So anyway, he's got that. He's got a backpack. Supposedly, he puts a gas mask on and then sets off a smoke device and then begins shooting.
And nobody thought it was weird that he put a gas mask on because
I suspect
COVID.
They thought it was weird.
Because COVID in New York City.
Yeah. Anyway.
That was a joke.
I'll give you that one, though. I mean, if I was just, getting on a subway and I saw someone put on a gas mask in New York City, it probably would not be the weirdest thing I'd seen that day.
That's probably true. So anyway, that's when he allegedly started shooting people.
But he was on the compartment of the train when this happened, or he was in the subway when this happened?
Supposedly he was on the train.
You know what confuses me?
I could be wrong about that.
How come everyone gets out and then they're just kind of like one lady, literally the first lady I see get out, she gets out and then right before she's out of the guy's frame, she's like, oh, like she's like calm now. But when she's 5 feet away from the train, the guy's in there? Is the guy in there? Everybody's acting really calm and standing right by the front of the doors.
So the train had not arrived at the station. They were boarding it in order to depart soon, and that was when the guy started?
I don't know. I'm not sure on the exact how everything worked.
I haven't seen any videos except the one I was talking about, so...
So the guy has been arrested, but the article I have here says that he remains on the run Wednesday morning, 24 hours after allegedly opening fire on a packed northbound train as it approached 36th Street Station in Sunset Park. So evidently it was approaching a specific station, and that was when he did it. On Wednesday morning, Mayor Eric Adams officially named James as a suspect, upgrading him from a person of interest. Police believe he is the man responsible because his credit card, and this is the part where I find, I've not seen any of this. I hadn't heard anything about what you told me, Bonnie, but this is the sentence that made me go, man, that is suspicious. Police believe he is the man responsible because his credit card was used to rent the U-Haul that police found a key to in a backpack that was dumped at the scene and that also contained a handgun, 3 magazines, fireworks, and firecrackers. So at the scene, which clearly this guy wasn't at. So you mentioned the backpack that Frank James had with him. He clearly left the backpack behind for whatever reason. And in it, he had 3 magazines, a handgun, and a key to the U-Haul that he used to travel on his credit card, directly linking him to the scene with weapons in New York City subways.
And allegedly the gun had a round jammed in it, which may have ended his shooting because he couldn't clear it or didn't bother trying.
So he had time to put the gun back in the backpack, but then instead of leaving with the backpack, he just left it there behind?
Strange.
That is
Strange
very
behavior.
peculiar. James lived in Wisconsin until recently, but packed up on March the 20th and left the state. He drove south through Illinois, then to Philadelphia, where he picked up the U-Haul that he brought to New York City.
I mean, it is possible that maybe his thinking was, well, there are security agents at these subways sometimes.
And he can't be walking around with the backpack.
Checkpoints. Maybe he didn't want to get searched as he was attempting to make his escape.
That's possible. It has now emerged that Frank James was known to the FBI and was questioned in 2019 in New Mexico, though it is not yet clear why. He was cleared but was entered into the state's, quote, Guardian Lead system. The Guardian program is the Bureau's terrorist threat and suspicious incident tracking system. And this is the part where I diverge from a lot of people because I don't think that being investigated or known or questioned by the FBI is a very much practical consequence to anyone. And I was arguing this back when the Orlando shooting happened. So this was long before I was personally on the FBI's radar that I was making that point. Despite being on that list, James was unimpeded, right? Because being on one of the government's many, many lists is no justification for impeding your ability to, as they say, upload hate speech-filled clips on YouTube.
Well, Chris Wade was telling me the other day that apparently the FBI created a part of the terrorist watch list for everybody in America who had ever visited a foreign website.
I don't know about that, but I heard that anyone who attended a Ron Paul rally in the 2008 campaign ended up on an FBI watch list. I mean, a lot of these FBI watch lists are going to be protected and confidential. What is the terminology they use? Either way, they're not going to reveal it during a Freedom of Information request. But evidently, this guy, Frank James, was uploading hate speech-filled clips on YouTube about how oppressed black people were and how black and white people should have no contact.
Well, he also apparently expressed disdain for black people, often calling them cattle and racial slurs, and spoke about his desire to, quote, kill people, unquote, even describing himself as a prophet of doom. He said, N-words should be wiped off the planet, even though I am one.
Well, I saw him, I heard part of a video where he was describing this. He was saying there's a difference between black people and, quote, N-words, so he wasn't saying...
But he also just said that he was an N-word.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. Sounds like a real nutty guy. I kind of would like to watch his videos, YouTube. Unfortunately, they banned them.
Well, there's a few of them out there. I've linked to them on our social. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with a shooting on a subway car. 23 people were injured when a gunman threw smoke grenades and opened fire on a train full of passengers during Tuesday's morning commute. William Denslow reports from the scene of the attack in Brooklyn's Sunset Park.
After a 30-hour manhunt, New York City's Mayor Eric Adams announced, "We've got him." Frank James was, according to law enforcement, arrested without incident in Manhattan's East Village after police received a Crime Stoppers tip. Law enforcement say that Frank James now faces one federal terrorism-related charge and could face life behind bars.
A group of around 40 countries is to ask the United Nations to hold member states accountable if they veto resolutions at the Security Council. It comes after Russia blocked a resolution to condemn its invasion of Ukraine. Sarah Walton reports from the UN.
A group of nearly 40 UN member states, led by Liechtenstein, are hoping to present a draft resolution to the General Assembly for a vote next week. It calls for the UN's member states to hold an emergency meeting whenever one of the permanent 5 members of the Security Council uses its veto power. At the moment, Russia, China, the US, UK and France have the right to block decisions taken by the Security Council. But the veto power has come under increased scrutiny after Russia recently used it to block a resolution that condemned its invasion of Ukraine, a resolution that was later approved by the General Assembly membership with more than 2/3 support.
Finland's Prime Minister has promised a decision on whether to join NATO will come within weeks. Sweden's also looking into whether to join NATO amid heightened security concerns spurred by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Moscow has warned Finland and Sweden against joining NATO. A Twitter shareholder has sued Elon Musk, alleging the Tesla CEO committed securities fraud by not revealing his large stake in the social media company soon enough. Musk's disclosure that he owns about 9% of Twitter sent the company's shares soaring. Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
Twitter shareholder Mark Bain Rosella has sued Elon Musk, alleging that the law required the Tesla CEO to disclose his ownership stake in Twitter by March 24th, but that he didn't do so until April 4th. Rosella filed the lawsuit on behalf of Twitter investors like himself, who sold their shares between those dates, missing out on the 27% spike in the share price that occurred when it became public knowledge that Musk was Twitter's largest shareholder. By delaying the filing, the lawsuit alleges that Musk saved about $143 million himself on buying Twitter stock.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, where you're invited to share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight is Aria, Ian, and Bonnie, and we're talking about Frank James here, who has recently been arrested. All of his YouTube videos were deleted from, his YouTube channel was deleted. Of course, there are people out there who have since downloaded his videos and re-uploaded him to their channels.
Don't know if it's all of them, though. The guy that I linked to over on our social media at social.freetalklive.com on the FTL profile, I linked over to a channel called Video Matt Presents. And according to him, the guy that owns that channel, he was only able to grab 20 of the videos on Frank James's channel. He says there were over 400 videos, however.
Wow.
So that's the thing. It's a race against time, because when they reveal who the suspect is in one of these crazy shootings, it's like, all right, who can go and get the videos the fastest from his channel before somebody at YouTube goes and takes the thing down? If you got 400 videos to download, they're going to cut it off at some point, and you're not going to get them all done unless you happen to already have been a subscriber to him and he only had like 400 subscribers and you already happen to have an archive of his channel, and the odds of that happening are very, very low.
Yeah, you can avoid all of this nonsense by just signing up for Odyssey.com. It will automatically import your entire YouTube channel for you, so that, don't go on a shooting spree and kill a bunch of people. But if you do get your channel deleted from YouTube because you happen to say something YouTube doesn't like, then your channels will still be there for people to share, and people that you won't have to worry about, 95% of your content or whatever being lost forever because YouTube decided that you're not allowed to say that.
Well, it's not lost forever. You can better believe it's in the hands of the FBI at this point. They have the exclusive copy of it.
That's true.
And YouTube didn't delete it. They just made it so you can't access it. It's still in their system.
Scary, good point. Mm-hmm. But this guy, Frank James, he also posted worrying memes about guns, bullets, and 9/11 on Facebook. But none
Who's
were
worried?
Well,
yeah.
Just the author, yeah.
Well, they're painting this guy as... It's curious to me that, him being into guns and bullets and 9/11, he's somehow a right-wing... They're not calling him a right-wing conspiracy theorist, but they're using all of the buzzwords that I would expect to find in an article about a right-wing conspiracy theorist who went on a killing spree. He was into guns and 9/11 and bullets. Mm-hmm. The alleged gunman's sister, Catherine Robinson, told the New York Times on Wednesday that he spent much of his life alone. In a separate interview with the Daily Beast, she said they hadn't spoken for 3 years.
His daughter, sorry? Is that what you said?
His sister. In the March 20th video, which he had titled Stop One Complete, and evidently the Daily Mail at least still has some of these videos, or at least parts of them, he gave an ominous warning about his plans. Speaking from the driver's seat of a rented van, he said, "As I leave the state of Wisconsin, about to be back in the state of Illinois, all I can say is good riddance. I will never be back again alive," to that colorful euphemism for the word state.
Well, I heard that part today. Ian must have been playing that video today, and I just thought he was saying good riddance to that state, not good riddance world, I'm gonna kill everyone.
Yeah, it's a bit of an extrapolation to suggest that he was planning to end up dead. It could just be somebody who is sick of living in Wisconsin and is saying he'll never come back alive voluntarily to that place. But then again,
I guess so.
He might have shot some people.
As someone who has been through some states that I never ever want to return to, I don't think I ever was like, I'm never returning alive to Tennessee or whatever. That just sounds weird, man.
He's a weird guy.
He is a weird guy. So he told about his plans to drive to Philadelphia, saying, "I'm on my way to Philadelphia. I packed my bags. I got up even though it's rainy." I mean, there's nothing here that I really find especially alarming.
His bags? Did he have a backpack?
He almost seems schizophrenic, like he's just a daily vlogger here updating his subscribers about his travel to Philadelphia, right? It's a little rainy, but I'm going to my storage unit. It's all loaded up, and then I'm going to finish my apartment this morning. But then 2 days later, or 2 days before the shooting, you have another video where he says that black people are forced into violence by racism. And there are so many asterisks from the Daily Mail here where they're censoring out what he tried to say that I'm not even going to attempt. But it's very, very different from, I'm about to go check out my storage unit, pull out some stuff, and set up my new apartment. It's completely different from that sort of content. At the end of his final video, he said, "Why should an N-word be on this planet besides to pick tobacco or sugar plant?"
He does sound confused. It's like...
He sounds schizophrenic. What do you say he's confused?
Because he's saying, like, black people are oppressed because of racism. Then he's saying they should all die. But, you know, it's just confusing because he might mean a certain type of person when he says the N-word, not all black people.
Well, we'll probably never know because YouTube took away our ability to access his videos.
Yeah.
There is no natural reason for there to be such a thing as an American Negro, African American. There is no reason for it except for you to be a slave, he said. That is wow.
Well,
I don't even want to repeat the rest of this. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Some people who we call black people nowadays have been saying they don't want to be called black anymore and they don't want to be called African American because black is a color, and I can totally get that. I've always thought it's weird to just call me white. I've always thought, like, I don't feel like I fit in with all white people who have similar skin color to me. I'm not in the same group as them. So I totally get not wanting to be called black, and some of them have been saying they don't want to be called African American because, you know, they could be something else.
Well, as I understand it, one of the whole reasons that, you know, black pride is considered acceptable, but white pride isn't, is because, you know, when black people were torn from Africa and brought to the United States, they lost their cultural and they lost their heritage, essentially. Like, we could trace our roots back and find out that, oh, yes, my family came from the United Kingdom or Germany or, you know, Czechoslovakia or whatever European nation. But if you were brought here in the African slave trade, you don't have any ability to do that. Your genealogy just begins at the moment when you arrived in the United States. So you don't have a Congo pride that you can look to or a Sudanese pride that you can look back to.
Yeah.
All you have is your skin color.
I'm curious, Bonnie, if they're not wanting to be referred to as black or African American, is it just human? Is that how they would prefer to be looked at? Because I've heard
I don't want to go too into the conspiracy because my friend sent me a lot of conspiracy pages on Instagram. She's black, and I guess she wanted me to, like, understand. And I don't want to go too into the conspiracy because I'll sound really weird.
Well, I would like to think that they want to be called just human. That would be great.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to get rid of the idea of race. I do remember
and colorism is, like, the worst. I think colorism is, like, the huge cause of racism in America.
What's colorism?
Just like you're white, no matter what country or region you're from. You're black, no matter what country or region you're from. Oh, you're just black. And even African American implies, like, you're just from a whole continent. How can you be from a whole big continent?
Carla Garrick is African American as well. She's from South Africa, and she's a white lady.
Yeah. But see, that's the issue that black Americans face in the United States, is that they have to be just considered from Africa because no one kept records of where they were, you know, trading for and kidnapping slaves.
They could be from Jamaica. They could be from Puerto Rico. The thing is, they're just human beings. But years ago, we had a black gentleman who was a caller on the show, and I asked, like, what's your preference? How do you like to be referred to? He says, just call me black. So
that's what I always understood was the easiest way to do it. I mean, just call them black Americans, black people. Just like, hey, don't say you are a black because that's just as screwed up as saying you're a homeless or you're a trans or you're a gay.
I mean, look, they're human beings. They're people just like everybody else. But the reality is, if you have to describe someone in a room, like if I want you to meet my black friend, and he's the only guy in the room who's black, how do I explain to you?
I just think that you could just say my friend, because you wouldn't say, I want you to meet my white friend in a room of white people.
I want you to meet my friend. He's the one black guy in the room all the way over there. Now, for whatever reason, I can't take you over there or whatever, right? Like,
yeah, just go on in. My friend's waiting on you.
In the same way that it's okay to describe you as the girl with the red hair, the bright red hair. I don't think
you could describe the shirt color he's wearing. Oh, he's over there in the red shirt.
That's true. Or you could say the black guy in the red shirt if there's more than one black guy in the room.
What do you think? What's the best way to identify your friends? It's Free Talk Live.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, You cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agrishosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agris Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agrishosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agrishosting.com.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically 2 types of advertising: direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to join us. How do you think people should be referred to when you're talking about other people? 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. That's 603-283-6160, because I was thinking about this during the break, right? It's not... I really don't believe that if you wanted to... If someone was like, hey, I'm going in here, who should I talk to? You would be like, my friend with the red hair. Mm-hmm. You would say... my trans friend, because that's the most recognizable characteristic. There's plenty of redheaded people that would be, let's say at the Porcupine Freedom Festival this year. Probably a bunch of redheads, but how many trans people are there going to be there? 1, maybe 2. So you give them the characteristic that is most identifying in those specific circumstances, I think, is what people tend to do.
I just think if you're like off in the distance and I'm pointing to you, the one with the red hair makes the most sense, because I think
That's
someone
true
have
as
to be
well, though, because the red hair, it does stand out. They're going to spot that from a distance.
I don't know if that's not me saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying, like, I think I have said red hair.
What if I'm not within view though? What if I'm like inside a building, like you're, collecting tickets outside of a party or whatever, and someone's looking for me for whatever reason? Would you like?
She's wearing all black.
Tattoos.
I don't know.
I think you should generally defer to the person's preference unless it's ridiculous, right? So for me, okay, I'll call you a she because you're putting an effort to look like a she, but I'm not going to call you they.
I wouldn't want you to. That'd be weird.
But
right?
even if
I'm
you
only
ask
one
me
person
to,
last I checked.
Yeah, that to me is just too weird, right? So like that crosses my weirdness threshold. It's like, no, not going to do that. But yeah, if you prefer to be called black, I'll call you black. That's fine. I'm
Excellent
not saying
point.
you prefer to be called
No,
black.
obviously, right.
You, the person not here.
Ideally, the person who you're calling black, is black. It's like not pulling that whole, well, I identify as black sort of thing that some people were doing back in the early 2010s or whatever. There was a lot of, I identify as disabled and stuff like that of people. It never was really clear whether it was just some people trolling or whether it was people on the right who were creating an issue that didn't exist. But this guy, Frank James, his name's no longer in front of me. They actually share some of his memes, surprisingly, saying, he's a pro-gun guy. I don't see any particular issue with any of that.
Pro-guns and bullets.
Apparently, in August 2020, Frank James posted a photograph of Kenosha shooter Cal Rittenhouse with the title, "And a child shall lead them." Rittenhouse was later acquitted of charges. Apparently, he didn't seem to have an issue with...
So he's a supporter of Rittenhouse.
Yes.
The Christianity stuff is what makes this so weird.
Hold on, there's Christianity stuff in here as well?
Yeah, I think "and a child shall lead him" has something to do with the Bible.
I don't know if it does or not.
Well, he's got many videos that are rambling and lengthy. Talking about 40, 50-minute, hour-long plus videos. So there's certainly a ton of content out there for people to go through. There are a few excerpts here from the Daily Beast if you want to hear some of it. I've got a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of this is, from the Daily Mail, it's not very helpful. Like, they have a stock image of a .38 caliber handgun. Hey, guys, that's not helpful. Thanks.
Quote, "I made up my mind, kind of told myself, I may have to hurt somebody one day. Somebody may have to get hurt," he says in one rambling 44-minute video viewed by the Daily Beast. Continuing, James said, quote, "Because there's no way I'm going to do what society asks me to do, which is try to work hard, to play fair, keep my nose to the old grindstone, pull myself by the bootstraps, go to work, pay my taxes, do everything you ask me to do, and then you're going to smack me in the face," unquote.
But didn't he do, basically exactly that for 60-ish years?
I guess he got tired of it. In the video, he seems to take direct aim at Mayor Adams, the New York City mayor.
See, that's what I don't get, because he wasn't even a New York City resident.
No, he wasn't. But maybe he spent some time there in the past. I'm not sure what his history is. Warning him that his, quote, "blueprint for ending gun violence was doomed to fail." He says, quote, "Because I see some serious flaws in his plan. I don't know about some of it. I know part of it is definitely flawed, and it's doomed to failure." So was this a big gotcha on the mayor on how it is that you can't stop guns from getting into New York City?
That just sounds crazy. Like, what person who has good reason to oppose gun control law says, "See, you can't stop us," and kills other people with a gun?
A crazy person.
That's true.
It does seem strange to me that it seems to be that easy to get onto a New York City subway.
There's no metal detectors to get on a subway.
Yeah, I know. That's what's strange, right?
They do every now and then set up checkpoints, and they will, I don't know if it's randomly, search people's bags, but that's about it. I mean, there's so many people travel the subway, they can't hold people up. I mean, they're constantly people moving through there. It's how almost everyone gets around in New York City. I mean, there's taxi cabs, but that's not the most common method of travel.
It seems like a tacit admission that, the TSA, the only reason it is tolerated, or that it isn't good and couldn't be implemented in a situation where people actually need to expediently get from point A to point B. because even a basic metal detector
it's going to slow things down.
It shouldn't.
Absolutely, it will. I mean, you've been through metal detectors before.
Yeah, they constantly go off when you have nothing on you. Then they have to be like, step aside.
You got to take everything out of your pockets.
And the only times that didn't happen, they turned out to be completely useless. Like the festival I went to last year, I had to go through metal detectors to get in every single day, and every single day it went off. And it was day 3 of the festival before we realized that it was the steel toes in my tennis shoes that were setting it off. And they never once took out a wand and was like, hey, why are you setting off our metal detector? They just waved me on through.
They didn't wand you? You just set the detector off and they let you in?
Yes.
Okay, so that's just for show then.
Well, yes, we assumed most of it was for show since they just let us walk right by the COVID line and didn't stop us there either.
Yeah, okay, so that's just for show. That's where it's, okay, we've got a metal detector up, so the people that see the metal detector then figure, oh crap, I better ditch my knife or my gun or whatever, and they figure they're going to get caught. And then, as you say, they're not even checking people that go through it. When you go into court or wherever there's a metal detector, you've got to take all the metal out of your pockets, everything out of your pockets generally, just to be sure, and put it in a little dish. And then, if you've got a backpack or whatever, they've got an X-ray unit that it's got to go through. I mean, it is not a fast process. And as soon as they, even though you take everything out, it may be your belt buckle or something like that sets it off. In my case, it's my ankle monitor that
Is it
sets
really?
it off. Yeah.
Okay, that's fun.
Yeah, and then they got to wand
I mean, that's
it down.
not fun. I mean, it is kind of fun.
It's fun when he lifts up his pants and the green flare is showing.
Yeah. And then it's, then you got to get wanded, and that slows you down even further. So you can't do that with hundreds of thousands of people or however many people are in the U.S. or the New York City subway at any given minute. It's just not
Well,
possible.
in that particular case, I mean, point taken, Frank James. You've demonstrated that it's not possible for them to keep guns off of New York City subways.
But I don't get it. It's just like you want them to try harder. If you didn't like gun control, that's what they're going to do with this.
And
So.
and you're
but
right
it
about
could be that he's crazy, like you're saying.
They will use this as an excuse to crack down further. That is always what they do with all of these shootings. But again, he's either crazy or he's a plant, part of the government plot to.
Or it didn't even
move this
really
stuff
happen,
forward.
right? I don't know these 10 victims. For all I know, they're crisis actors.
Well, there's that possibility. And of course, the point that always should get made in this case is, if New York City actually had gun freedom, this would have been over in a flash. Dude would have tried to pull out a gun and blast somebody, and he probably wouldn't have gotten through 1 or 2 victims instead of 10 victims, because somebody else in that subway car, if it were New Hampshire, somebody else would be armed, probably more than one somebody else, and dude would be dead in a pool of his own blood if he tried something like that here.
What I find curious about it is that, smoke from smoke grenades, I presume it's gray, I don't know, but he wore a gray sweatsuit apparently and a bright green vest. If he had tried this in somewhere like New Hampshire and they saw a dude with a bright green vest.
It's like a target.
Yeah. But he wears the gray sweatpants like he was trying to blend in with the smoke and not be visible, while at the same time wearing a bright green vest, apparently.
Yeah.
All very confusing. And then leaving the backpack and the guns behind, also very confusing. But I guess he wanted... That's probably, as you pointed out, that's probably the least suspicious part of this, because if he wanted to just sneak out with everyone else, I mean, the shooter at the time was wearing a gas mask. He had a bright green vest on. Ditch the vest, ditch the mask, and, stumble out coughing like everyone else. Talking about how you're suffering from smoke inhalation. That's probably his best bet of getting out of there without getting apprehended by the police. But then again, the police response times are so slow that if this happened as quickly as, it seemed like it would have happened, the police wouldn't have been there to do anything as he was fleeing anyway.
They weren't.
I don't know, but the guy is definitely a psychopath from everything I've heard. And when we get back, we're going to talk about Bitcoin and psychopaths. And evidently, some people are doing studies saying that people who like Bitcoin are psychopaths, but not quite like this guy, hopefully. There's more coming up. Hour 2, it's Free Talk Live.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with a shooting on a subway car. 23 people were injured when a gunman threw smoke grenades and opened fire on a train full of passengers during Tuesday's morning commute. William Denslow reports from the scene of the attack in Brooklyn's Sunset Park.
After a 30-hour manhunt, New York City's Mayor Eric Adams announced, "We've got him." Frank James was, according to law enforcement, arrested without incident in Manhattan's East Village after police received a Crime Stoppers tip. Law enforcement say that Frank James now faces one federal terrorism-related charge and could face life behind bars.
A group of around 40 countries is to ask the United Nations to hold member states accountable if they veto resolutions at the Security Council. It comes after Russia blocked a resolution to condemn its invasion of Ukraine. Sarah Walton reports from the UN.
A group of nearly 40 UN member states, led by Liechtenstein, are hoping to present a draft resolution to the General Assembly for a vote next week. It calls for the UN's member states to hold an emergency meeting whenever one of the permanent 5 members of the Security Council uses its veto power. At the moment, Russia, China, the US, UK and France have the right to block decisions taken by the Security Council. But the veto power has come under increased scrutiny after Russia recently used it to block a resolution that condemned its invasion of Ukraine, a resolution that was later approved by the General Assembly membership with more than 2/3 support.
Finland's Prime Minister has promised a decision on whether to join NATO will come within weeks. Sweden's also looking into whether to join NATO amid heightened security concerns spurred by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Moscow has warned Finland and Sweden against joining NATO. A Twitter shareholder has sued Elon Musk, alleging the Tesla CEO committed securities fraud by not revealing his large stake in the social media company soon enough. Musk's disclosure that he owns about 9% of Twitter sent the company's shares soaring. Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
Twitter shareholder Mark Bain Rosella has sued Elon Musk, alleging that the law required the Tesla CEO to disclose his ownership stake in Twitter by March 24th, but that he didn't do so until April 4th. Rosella filed the lawsuit on behalf of Twitter investors like himself who sold their shares between those dates, missing out on the 27% spike in the share price that occurred when it became public knowledge that Musk was Twitter's largest shareholder. By delaying the filing, the lawsuit alleges that Musk saved about $143 million himself on buying Twitter stock.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. If you've seen images from the Chinese city of Shanghai on social media over the last few days, you will know that tensions in the city have risen dramatically over strict COVID-19 lockdowns implemented there by the Chinese government, amid reports of food shortages and rising public anger over the stringent efforts to tackle the country's biggest outbreak since the pandemic began. Most of the 25 million people in the city remain under lockdown. But FSN's Beijing Bureau Chief Patrick Fox says some efforts were made on Monday to alleviate the situation.
There's been a lot of anger and frustration. I think what we're seeing today is possible signs that authorities are buckling under the pressure amid this outcry over this ongoing lockdown, and possibly also a bit of an acknowledgement that this just can't go on. Residents of 7,000 compounds or units have been classified as low risk, and they've been allowed out of their homes, but not outside of their immediate compounds. There is still a lot of concern about the spread of the disease, and authorities said that they couldn't afford for people to gather in a, quote, disorderly manner, and that would jeopardize epidemic control measures.
There have been 27,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Shanghai, and the outbreak comes at a time when the government in Beijing is still committed to achieving a zero COVID policy there and in many other cities across the country. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with a shooting on a subway car. A group of around 40 countries is to ask the United Nations to hold member states accountable if they veto resolutions at the Security Council. Finland's Prime Minister has promised a decision on whether to join NATO will come within weeks.
After excitedly posting an image of a Lamborghini Rebenton to his Facebook account earlier this afternoon, 38-year-old little boy Nick Weber talked to Onion reporters about his passion for fast cars.
When I saw that car, I was like, whoa, it was so cool. I had to show it to all my friends. I like red cars the best, but only ones that are really, really fast. I can't wait to get one when I'm older. I'm going to get the fastest car in the whole world.
The Weber also frequently posts about his other interests, which include motorcycles, fighter jets, and Marvel superhero Iron Man. The nearly 40-year-old small child confirmed that sports cars are his favorite, and the picture of the bright yellow Lamborghini has already garnered 15 likes and 9 comments from other enthused middle-aged children who are friends with Weber on the social networking site.
My best friend Bradley, he sent me a picture of a blue convertible that's so awesome. It has these big wheels and even has a racing stripe on it.
After watching several online videos of fast cars and eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, the home-owning little tyke went to his room to take a nap.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're welcome to take control of the airwaves. Talk about whatever is important to you. That's 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. Again, that's 603-283-6160. Coming up, we're going to be talking about how the producer price index, we've been talking about a lot about inflation, but evidently the producer price index is at a record high. We talked a bit about inflation yesterday, and one of the numbers that the government put out is 8% or 8.5%. It's a record high, of course.
What's inflation? Do you mean the Putin price hike?
I do mean the Putin price hike. Obviously, when I say inflation, I appreciate you correcting me. What I mean is that, Vladimir Putin invaded Ukraine, and because of that, the U.S. economy sucks. And it has absolutely nothing to do with anything else. It is just Putin's war and the Putin price hike. Gas prices were definitely not rising 7 months ago or 8 months ago. Inflation was not happening 7 or 8 months ago. There were not supply ships stuck off the coast of California and New York City.
We've always been at war with Eurasia.
Yes.
Russia.
No, yeah. Either way, whoever we're at war with now, we've always been at war with them, and we've never been at war with anyone else. And all we're dealing with now, as you point out accurately, is the Putin price hike. Of course, everything all of us just said is facetious.
But that's what they want you to believe. That is actually what they want you to believe, that everything you're experiencing at the gas pump, at the grocery store checkout, and elsewhere is a result of Putin.
And it's complete nonsense. I mean, you can just go to our podcast page or our video page at video.freetalklive.com and check the archives there where we were talking about this stuff as it was happening 6 months ago. Don't let it get memory hold. All of this stuff actually happened. It's been happening. It's still happening, and it's not Putin's fault.
When I was a little kid, the people on Fox News would say gold is a hedge against inflation. It's been a thing. It's been a thing. That's what I always heard that.
Against inflation.
I don't think Fox News would say that now.
That's true.
Well, if they have a gold sponsor, they sure would.
They would be too busy saying how inflation is, it turns out it's actually a good thing. Inflation's a good thing, right? It makes everyone more equal, and we love equality.
Is Fox making those statements because they tend to be the right-winger, quote-unquote, news entertainment platform, and so because the right wing is not in charge in D.C., I think they're more likely to be critical, but again, I don't spend a whole lot of time reading Fox News.
That's a good question. They certainly, if they had Trump in the White House still,
then they would be defending whatever.
They're like, look, no, he's just helping us achieve equality, which is true in the sense that inflation, which is an increase in the money supply, which causes an increase in prices, that there's not a corresponding increase in wage to match it, so everyone gets equally poor under inflation. So it does make us a little bit more equal. I'm surprised that. Look, it's just a matter of time before some of these left-wing sites like The Guardian or whatever are rolling out that narrative. Hey, guys, it turns out this inflation stuff is pretty good.
They actually
making us equal.
That. They had the inflation puff pieces happen last year, and now they've moved on to admitting that inflation is hurting people, and now they're blaming Putin for it.
Ah, yes. Well, it's definitely Putin's fault. But before we get into any of that, let's go to the phones. We have Major Payne on the lines from Michigan. Major Payne, you're on Free Talk Live.
Good evening. Yeah, I wanted to touch on this Frank James business a little bit, but I'm going to go on kind of a media spin with it.
Okay.
Well, ever since they've been trying to get Trump out of office, so it's been like 5 years now, it's pretty much the news media has been attacking Whitey. Whitey this, Whitey that. Any mass shooting that was done by a white man, by God, it got blasted out of the air. But the only way a black man made it on the news was if the cops were beating him up or something. But as far as mass shooters go, they are definitely just parallel with the percentage of the population. If there's 12% Chinese, there's going to be 12% Chinese mass murderers. If there's 35% Mexicans, there's going to be 35% Mexican mass murderers.
I tend to agree with those numbers, and that's one of the reasons that I take issue with the United States prison system and its disproportionate targeting of black Americans, because most prisons, state prisons at least in the United States, have a prison population that is like 40 to 50% black. Even though everyone, as you're pointing out, white people, black people, Asian people, they all commit crimes at about the same rates.
Well, I mean, I don't disagree with what Major Payne is saying sort of in theory, but I'm having a tough time remembering the last Asian shooter.
Yeah, well, me too, but they're only, 7% of the population, maybe?
Well, I mean, on the Pacific Northwest, they're much larger percentage than they are here. I don't know what they are offhand, but if you're talking about, Seattle or San Francisco or somewhere else.
The most recent one the one that comes up is, I'm not going to attempt it, but it was a Virginia Tech shooting where 32 people were killed back in 2007.
Wow.
Evidently, there seem to be some more recent ones, but all of the ones that the media is pointing out were anti-Asian shootings.
Oh, okay, I got you.
And, of course, if you Google anything about a mass shooter right now, it's going to be flooded with Frank James. So you have a good point. I can't think of too many Asian mass shooters either, but I tend to think they probably do happen. But they're probably not 6% of mass shootings. I think you're probably correct.
If it did happen nowadays with an Asian shooter, they would probably hype it because they're trying to make yellow the new white.
I just think that
I do not know what that means.
No, I haven't heard that.
I think it's just so hard for me to trust these numbers. They're government numbers.
Because the Japanese and the Koreans and whatnot do so good in school because they actually apply themselves. That they are now a member of the overprivileged class like Whitey. So they're trying to roll them all into one basket.
Well, somebody has run the statistics. According to Statista.com, the number of mass shootings in the United States between 1982 and February of 2022, so about 40 years worth of them,
I want to say, and I say this as a white person, I want to say they were disproportionately white people.
Yeah, I think that's what my guess is also.
It looks like they're not doing percentages here, but we do have number of incidents: 66 white, 21 black, 10 Latino, 8 Asian, 5 other, 3 Native American, and 13 unknown or unclear.
Okay, so the white population is 65 to 70%. The black population is about 20%. So that totally jives with what I just said.
Well, these aren't percentages.
No, that's not true at all. The black percentage of Americans is not 20% at all.
Well, 17 maybe.
Well, it doesn't matter. These aren't percentages. I could run the percentages on this, but either way, it does look about right at a glance here. As far as what you'd expect.
There's nuts in every race.
Yes,
sure.
Yeah, there's plenty of psychopaths out there.
The same. Yeah.
But either way, it's just hard for me to trust these numbers at all because so many of these mass shooters come out to seem like patsies to me. It's just like, I'm just going to call it as I see it. I don't care if that makes me sound crazy.
You make a really good point, Bonnie. I mean, there's so many of these, and there's so many ulterior motives and things like that. And this doesn't even account for, the police mass shootings, because police kill a lot of people too. And those aren't mass shootings. But if we include those stats in there as well, that's not going to skew the numbers in, as you put it, Whitey's favor, if we include the numbers of people shot and killed by police.
A police mass shooting would just get called police kinetic action or whatever they call it. They call it something else. I'm mixing up the military and the police, but still, they wouldn't call it a mass shooting. They would call it something else, like police operations.
Major Payne, thank you so much tonight for the call. It's certainly an interesting concept, and you have a good point. I don't believe that Asians represent 6% of mass shooters, but I would be shocked to find that they represent 6% of Americans as well. But again, I'm not a statistician. I don't know the numbers on that. I do know that white people aren't 65 to 70% of the population, but again, those weren't statistics you were talking about. It was something else.
Asians, 8 shootings. I totaled up the numbers here. 126 is the total, so 8 out of 126 is about 6.3%.
Okay, wow.
And then 21 out of 126, that's the blacks, is about 16.6%.
Oh, so it's almost spot on. Wow, that's shocking. That's a relief, I suppose. Because it does back up Major Payne's points, is that there's nuts in every race, and the skin color is kind of irrelevant to whether or not there are crazy people who look a whole lot like you.
Yeah, and there's so many white people, especially not around here, but that say that black people commit the most crimes, and I'm always just wondering, how do you even get that statistics? First of all, it's government statistics.
I do want to say before we go out to break that I stand corrected. I expected white people to represent more mass shootings, and evidently they didn't. 603-283-6160.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the ForkFest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the ForkFest forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. forkfest.party. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you would like to weigh in. Again, that's 603-283-6160. Before we get to talking about inflation, are you hedging your bets against inflation? They used to say that gold was a hedge against inflation, and it still is, right? Inflation, the money supply is increasing, and as we've seen from gold, I don't watch the price of gold closely, but I do watch the price of goldbacks fairly closely. They're almost, if they haven't reached $4 per right now, they're right on the edge of that. Mm-hmm. I'm confident that at the Porcupine Freedom Festival this year, where goldbacks will be circulating heavier than ever, I look forward to seeing the constant flashes of brilliant gold throughout the landscape as people flash their goldbacks around. But they'll be trading for $5 per at least at the Porcupine Freedom Festival, because no one's going to trade them for undervalue. And I mean, even if they're $4 and a nickel, among libertarians, no one's going to take them at $4. They're going to be $5 everywhere you go. But there's another way, and that's Bitcoin. You can find out about it at bitcoin.com. It is on sale, as I understand it. I think it's down to about $40,000 right now. I'm not exactly sure. But you can go to bitcoin.com, click Getting Started at the top of the page, and take a few minutes out of your day to learn about this important world-changing information, because it is changing the world, and it's only going to continue changing the world as governments do everything that they can to destroy the USD and to destroy their own currencies. It's not just the U.S. government that is doing this. So find out what in the world I'm even talking about at bitcoin.com, because this is going to affect you. I went to the store today. I almost never buy candy or anything like that, but I wanted some Starburst, and I noticed that the pack of Starburst that they have there, it's the same size as it's always been, but it's like $1.99 now or something like that. And it's just insane. These little snack cakes that I would have paid 35 cents for back in my days of, smoking pot and, delivering pizzas. That they would have been 35 cents, and now it's like you get two of them for $2.19 or whatever. It's insane, the price increase that's going on. I was talking to one of the owners about the convenience store about this, about how a 12-ounce Coke can, Coca-Cola, used to be 50 cents, right? But then it was 75 cents. And then it was you could get a 20 ounce for $1. Then it was $1.25. Then it was $1.50. Now it's $2. And
$2 now?
$2
Jesus.
if you can find a Coke machine. Because I also mentioned that the last place I actually saw
They got them at Walmart.
They do?
Yeah.
I imagine it's $2 per there. It may be
$1.75. I noticed it was
$1.75.
but I don't look at often.
It may be $1.75. You do see those. The $2 ones that I've seen, they were at hotels.
Oh yeah, of course.
But it could be $1.75 at But even then, $1.75. That's almost an increase of 100% versus what it was at back when I was actually drinking soft drinks. It's insane what's going on.
Yeah, in the convenience store you're talking about, a couple weeks ago, I came into work and they handed me a roll of labels and I had to go around putting new prices on everything.
Like here's your afternoon. Everything has to be repriced because the price of everything has gone up.
Yep.
That's unfortunate, but I mean that's how it's happening.
If inflation or when inflation gets so bad, prices could be going up on a daily or weekly basis. You might just end up saying check price at register, just so you don't have to be repricing everything all the time. Or have digital price tags, or you can just update it with a computer and you don't have to go around the whole store. Because that's a pain in the butt.
I like that idea. I don't like the reason that idea would happen, but I like the idea. I think the Bitcoin shop back when it existed in Portsmouth had something similar to that.
I think so.
Well,
they had Bitcoin-only prices, I think.
Is that what it was?
Yeah.
Okay. But even then, I think you had to scan a QR code to even find out what it was.
That might be true. It's been a while.
Because it wasn't priced in dollar amounts, and they couldn't just leave it perpetually priced at a, 0.001 Bitcoin or whatever, because then suddenly you could be paying $400 for a latte or one of their weird grass sodas, whatever it was. I don't remember what exactly they served, but it was some weird stuff. But inflation is happening. One of the tricks that I've been told lately is that you buy gasoline every day instead of doing
dollar cost averaging gas.
Yep.
Well, not maybe, but the point is to make it feel like it doesn't hurt as much. Like, I tend to buy gas like once a week or once every 2 weeks because I don't do a whole lot of driving, so I don't need it. But when I do buy it at this rate, I end up buying, $70 here, $50, and I'm like, man, that really sucks.
Yeah, but is it really worth your time to go to a gas station every single day?
For me, no, and that's why I haven't been doing it. It's like, I get that it's going to be emotionally painful to look at that number and see I just bought $70 worth of gas, whereas, 2 years ago, that same amount of gas would have been like $25-$30.
I hate going to the gas station now, but whenever I did Uber Eats, I would always go to the gas, or constantly, obviously, because I had to drive a lot. And my friend one time said, if you died today, Bonnie, I would have to say at your funeral, one thing I know about Bonnie is that she's always at gas stations every time I call her.
So why is gasoline still so expensive if oil prices have dropped? I don't know to what extent oil prices really even affect the price of gasoline. I know that gasoline is derived from oil.
Yeah, it's the input cost.
So oil prices have tumbled almost 20% from a multi-year peak in March. But my question isn't why aren't gasoline prices gone back down?
They have gone down.
Why did they go up in the first place? Why did the price of oil shoot up the way it did? Because it's not like we're actually, that's what they say, but anybody who looks goes, wait a minute, we weren't getting that much of our oil from Russia in the first place. There's no reason that not getting oil, it should have decreased our supply of gasoline by 2%? Something along those lines, 2 to 6%, depending on which estimate you're using. So we should have expected a 2 to 6% increase in the price, corresponding to a decrease in the supply. But that's not what we saw at all. We saw an almost 50, 60, 70% increase in the price.
Probably because at the same time, inflation is hitting the highest rates ever.
Inflation is hitting, although Bikers on Call in the YouTube chat points out that oil prices are always manipulated. And there's a lot of speculation and manipulation that goes on. Of course, you've got the military that secures oil derricks or whatever, oil places in the Middle East, and that, of course, is essentially a subsidy to oil. So you could argue that the price is actually lower than what it should be based on what it would be in the marketplace. Who knows? It's hard to say.
I mean, I don't know, but I think it was probably just an overreaction from gas companies.
Could be.
But I have an article here that gets into what they think the reason is. The difference between the cost of oil and gasoline has attracted attention from politicians, some of whom have accused oil companies of price gouging.
Ridiculous.
There's no such thing as price gouging. There's just increasing the price of a thing so that you don't run out of the supply of that thing. Because as the supply goes down, if demand stays the same because price isn't increasing, you're going to end up with a shortage of that good. That's what always happens. In a House hearing on April the 6th, Democrats claimed that large oil companies have intentionally kept fuel prices elevated, which the companies have denied. The centerpiece of the hearing was a chart displayed by Diane DeGette showing oil prices coming down while fuel prices stayed aloft. Something just doesn't add up, she said. And again, it's worth mentioning that just 2 years ago, we were talking about how oil was negative or $0 per barrel, and they were actually paying people to store it. So we went from, I don't remember if the price of oil was ever actually negative, but I guess it was that they were paying you to store it.
Yeah, I don't think, to call it $0 a barrel is probably not accurate, but there was something that happened that flipped to where they were paying people to store it because they couldn't sell it.
Because they were making too much still. You can't just turn them off.
Right, you can't turn off the spigot.
Yeah, so what's going on here? Why is it up? We're going to get into it. 603-283-6160. Of course, your calls and thoughts are welcome. It's Free Talk Live.
A congressman recently revealed that legislation totaling 2,900 pages and involving more than $1 trillion was available to members of Congress for less than 48 hours to study and consider. That's over 60 pages of legislation per hour. Do you think anyone read the entire bill? I'm Jim Babka with DownsizeDC.org. Consider a proposal buried in a 3,200-page, $388 billion bill, which would have empowered committee chairmen or their agents to examine Americans' tax returns. When this horrible provision came to light, no one claimed to know how it got into the bill. One congressman questioned said, "I didn't write it, I didn't approve it, I wasn't even consulted." If your attorney represented you this way, he might be disbarred. But this is how Congress represents you every day. That's why DownsizeDC.org has created the Read the Bills Act. You can force Congress to read their bills before they pass them at DownsizeDC.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with a shooting on a subway car. 23 people were injured when a gunman threw smoke grenades and opened fire on a train full of passengers during Tuesday's morning commute. William Denslow reports from the scene of the attack in Brooklyn's Sunset Park.
After a 30-hour manhunt, New York City's Mayor Eric Adams announced, "We've got him." Frank James was, according to law enforcement, arrested without incident in Manhattan's East Village after police received a Crime Stoppers tip. Law enforcement say that Frank James now faces one federal terrorism-related charge and could face life behind bars.
A group of around 40 countries is to ask the United Nations to hold member states accountable if they veto resolutions at the Security Council. It comes after Russia blocked a resolution to condemn its invasion of Ukraine. Sarah Walton reports from the UN.
A group of nearly 40 UN member states, led by Liechtenstein, are hoping to present a draft resolution to the General Assembly for a vote next week. It calls for the UN's member states to hold an emergency meeting whenever one of the permanent 5 members of the Security Council uses its veto power. At the moment, Russia, China, the US, UK and France have the right to block decisions taken by the Security Council. But the veto power has come under increased scrutiny after Russia recently used it to block a resolution that condemned its invasion of Ukraine, a resolution that was later approved by the General Assembly membership with more than 2/3 support.
Finland's Prime Minister has promised a decision on whether to join NATO will come within weeks. Sweden's also looking into whether to join NATO amid heightened security concerns spurred by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Moscow has warned Finland and Sweden against joining NATO. A Twitter shareholder has sued Elon Musk, alleging the Tesla CEO committed securities fraud by not revealing his large stake in the social media company soon enough. Musk's disclosure that he owns about 9% of Twitter sent the company's shares soaring. Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
Twitter shareholder Mark Bain Rosella has sued Elon Musk, alleging that the law required the Tesla CEO to disclose his ownership stake in Twitter by March 24th, but that he didn't do so until April 4th. Rosella filed the lawsuit on behalf of Twitter investors like himself who sold their shares between those dates, missing out on the 27% spike in the share price that occurred when it became public knowledge that Musk was Twitter's largest shareholder. By delaying the filing, the lawsuit alleges that Musk saved about $143 million himself on buying Twitter stock.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to call in with your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And we mentioned earlier, the Porcupine Freedom Festival. I believe it's probably sold out by this point. I haven't checked.
It's oversold, technically.
Oh, wow.
So you're going to have a hard time getting tickets there with that. They're probably still selling tickets, but on the hopes that people aren't going to show up. That's what oversold usually means. I don't know if they stopped selling tickets yet, basically, but they are officially sold out, even if they are still selling tickets. It's very weird. But Fork Fest still has open spots. We're assuming. We actually don't know. For all we know, Rogers Campground is sold out for the week of Fork Fest. Fork Fest is the freedom-loving, decentralized alternative to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, or continuation of the Porcupine Freedom Festival would be a more accurate way to put it, because alternatives suggest that they're happening at the same times or that they're competitors or anything like that. These are really very different festivals. Fork Fest is generally much more laid back. It's a much more relaxed environment because no one's in charge. No one's planning anything. If you want something to happen, you kind of have to get out there and make it happen because no one else is going to plan for any speakers to show up or any of that sort of thing. So
if you want to speak, speak.
Yep. Forkfest.party is the unofficial website. That's fork like you eat with, fest.party. It's a good time. There's a festival every year. There's a fireworks show every year now. This one is happening on July the 3rd. It lasts about a week, and it's just after the Porcupine Freedom Festival. So check it out, forkfest.party.
Does anyone do that? Does anyone have, speaking events?
There was. The first year that Fork Fest came after the Porcupine Freedom Festival was a bigger year than it was last year, and there was at least one speaking event that I know of. Chris Lopez of the Free State Project, I think she's on the board, so she doesn't mind being name dropped. She gave a speech on sexual activity with disabilities at the Ladies' Night Out area. And
that was a couple years ago, right?
Yeah, that 2 or 3 years ago. I don't know how long ago exactly it was. And I think the Alt Expo people continue doing presentations and stuff like that throughout Fork Fest.
I hope they do because I want to see some Alt Expo things. I was just busy during
Liberty Forum. Well, they'll be at the Porcupine Freedom Festival for sure. I mean, they're there every year. So if you want to see the Alt Expo, you'll at least see them there. Hopefully they will stay around for Fork Fest. I don't know if you intend to be there for that, but check it out. It's forkfest.party. We have Dan on the line from Nebraska, ready to tell us why we're so wrong about everything. Dan, you're on Free Talk Live.
Well, you guys, I mean, look, you're making it sound like I'm coming in here really hostile. And, first I want to say that the worst take I've heard as far as gun control, which is that I called in about, or anything related to shooting, was from one Major Payne who called in a little bit earlier with some, obviously baseless and conspiracy inclined ideas about how race factors into
what you're referring to. Simply put, is that the media wants to paint all mass shootings by white people as being racially motivated, and they don't talk about shootings committed by black people, or at least that was Major Payne's contention. Is that correct?
That's correct. But yeah, actually, the thing I wanted to ask you guys in particular is where for you guys would be the line where you see that the damage done by guns should be remedied by some type of maybe, let's say, political direct action.
There isn't a line because that's an impossible task. It's just like nuclear weapons. I don't want nuclear weapons to exist because of the amount of damage they can cause. But I also know that we're never going to annihilate or get rid of every single nuclear weapon. There's always going to be one. There's always going to be someone out there with the gun. The question isn't how do we keep that someone from getting a gun, it's what do we do when that person has a gun and they start using it for evil?
More people need to have guns.
Yeah, you have to meet it with an equal amount of force, and that means having a gun. You can't get rid of every single gun in existence. Even the United Kingdom hasn't managed to do that. They can't even keep guns out of prisons.
I agree with Arya. I was going to say basically the same thing. I don't know. There would never be a line where I decide to do something that's ineffective. And why would I decide to do something that's not effective? I would rather everyone have guns because guess what? There aren't mass shootings in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's true. Vermont also. Vermont and New Hampshire are two of the more gun-friendly places out there, and they're also the least number of murders per capita in all of the United States.
They're also incredibly rural, though.
There are cities here. Manchester doesn't have a lot of gun crime either, and it's a city of over 100,000 people.
What would that really have to do with anything anyway? Like if somebody wanted to shoot a lot of people in a rural area, they could just go to a church and shoot people.
Well, I think that it has to do with, maybe the density of a city kind of just gives people better opportunities to...
No, the better opportunity is the fact that when you go and shoot somebody in New York City, like this dude allegedly did on the subway, you can be almost certain that as long as most people, the super majority of people are law-abiding, that there will be no guns on the subway train car. Whereas if you were to go anywhere in New Hampshire and try the same thing, it would be a highly risky thing to do because there's a good chance there will be multiple people carrying guns.
I was thinking about that in regard to the Porcupine Freedom Festival and the Fork Fest earlier, which, if some racist black man wanted to cause a maximum amount of damage to as many white people as he could without running any real risk of hitting a black person, then the Porcupine Freedom Festival and the Fork Fest, they're the prime targets, right? That's where you're going to find a huge number of white people and very, very few people of any other ethnicity. But if you try that at Pork Fest, you're going to learn very, very quickly that almost everyone there is armed and you're not going to be very effective.
Yeah, I think it would be like getting shot from multiple angles all at once. So you would lift your hand out of your holster with your gun and you would just evaporate.
Okay, now I kind of get that how in theory that would work. Like I can see from A to B, but again, the thing about gun control is that it is to me, I value evidence-based policy, and the evidence and what the studies are just are not on the side of guns. Like you're saying that's going to happen in most circumstances.
The evidence is gun control doesn't work. It doesn't keep guns out of the hands of people who want them. It just keeps guns out of the hands of people who would be quote-unquote law-abiding, who would otherwise be able to defend themselves. It does not keep guns out of the hands of felons or other people that would actually use them to harm others.
Yeah,
I have a really simple...
Hold on, now you guys...
Hold on, I have a really simple question for you. Let's say there's a shooting at a bar in whatever town you're in. What do people do in order to put an end to that situation?
I mean, usually you'd call the police.
And the police come with what? What do they have with them when they come to put a stop to this mass shooting?
They're going to have guns. I mean, that's one of the things.
Okay, so would it not be more effective if you had guns that were already there instead of having to travel 15 minutes, as Bonnie points out?
Okay, well, here's the thing, and here's the deal, though.
Well, can you answer the question?
I did answer the question.
No, you said, here's the deal. Would it not be more effective instead of having the guns have to travel there over the course of 15 minutes to have someone already...
Here's the thing. Arya, you can say that, I understand how in theory you could think that would work, but that in reality, based on the data from the what the data from the emergency departments belie the claim, unless virtually all...
What department is this?
Okay, here's
the data of his butthole, pulling it right out, right now.
We're no likely to be injured after you taking protective action than victims using other forms of protection. Okay,
run that by me again.
We just didn't hear you.
Cases where there's so even though there are so many guns in this country, and you would think that if what you're saying would actually turn out more, it's actually in less than 1% of contact crimes that the victims use a gun in self-defense. And the people who were those victims.
What the hell are you talking about? See, here's the thing you don't understand, Dan. If you use a gun in self-defense, a lot of times that doesn't get reported.
And another thing is a lot more shootings happen in these gun-free areas, so of course it would be a lower number of people that pull out a gun in self-defense if they're in a safe zone.
That's a really good point. I mean, because that data that you just put out, Dan, that includes schools and stuff like that where people can't have guns to defend themselves. There's more coming up. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. And even though Elon Musk is making some sort of effort to take over Twitter and the media is freaking out about it, I've got an article that we probably won't get to tonight about how this Elon Musk's vision for the internet is terrifying lunacy and we must all be afraid. The fact is that big tech does have a bad habit of censoring people. And in order to counter that, we've created our own social media platform. You can find it at social.freetalklive.com. If you're sick of getting censored on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all of these other places, the answer isn't to go to Gab or Parler or Truther or whatever Trump's platform is called, or one of these other centralized platforms where they're going to, like, I think on Gab you're not allowed to criticize Israel or something like that. And in Parler got rid of Christopher Cantwell, which is shocking because it was Gab that got rid of Christopher Cantwell. Parler's the one
Cantwell
where you can't
was in prison by the time Parler came out.
Yeah, Parler is the one where you can't criticize Israel, I think. So, I mean, it's all a mess. They all develop their own stupid little rules. If you want to get away from that, social.freetalklive.com is the way to go. We kept Dan on the lines because I felt like we weren't a little fair to him. It's 3 against 1 here, so I'm going to sit back through a lot of this, Dan, and let Ian and Bonnie ask you the questions they wanted to ask. But I'm sure you wanted to respond to our statements here, or at least clarify what you were trying to say before we went out to break, because it wasn't very clear.
Dan thinks gun control works.
Okay, so you guys, what I was saying was that you guys, your original point was that all these people who are supposedly having these guns that could be using them in self-defense would be bringing down the rate of, gun violence or whatever. But
they already are.
According to the Harvard Injury Control Research Center, guns are used in self-defense. So guns are used by the victims in less than 1% of those crimes. So you're literally already talking about.
You're talking about
less than 1% of those.
You're talking about places where this happened, where a shooter started shooting people, right? My point is, people don't start shooting people when they know everyone around them has guns.
Or when they know
so
people
you didn't
could have
destroy
guns.
our point at all.
Yeah, look, when you go shooting people on a school campus, you're in what's called a gun-free zone. When you go to a subway car in New York City, you're basically in a gun-free zone because all of New York City, if people are quote-unquote law-abiding, is a gun-free zone. So, of course, people are not going to have guns in those situations. On the other hand, if you walk into a bank in New Hampshire and somebody's standing there in line with a gun on their hip and you were thinking about robbing that bank, you might give it a second thought and not even try in that particular case. And you might go down to Massachusetts where it's much less likely that you're going to encounter someone with a gun.
And that's why it wouldn't end up in his statistic, because it wouldn't happen.
Correct. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff that guns and the possession of them and the showing of them, because again, sometimes people open carry, sometimes they don't. In some cases where a criminal is like moving towards doing a thing, simply showing a gun to that person will change their mind. So if you had it concealed, not concealing it. Now again, generally the rule...
That happened with my little brother.
What happened there?
This guy was doing something weird around his car. I don't remember what he was doing, and he just flashed his gun, and the guy got in his car and drove away.
Right, there's no statistic there because he didn't call the cops, right?
No.
Right. Because most people in those circumstances, they just want to get on with their lives. So they put their gun away, they get in the car, and they leave. They go home. That's the end of it. So you don't have any numbers for that, Dan. You have no idea how often guns prevent crime from even starting.
Well, okay, based on that, Ian, really, I have just as much license to say, well, you don't know how many more gun crimes are committed by a similar type of brandishing, and whether or not that would outweigh the amount of people who do the self-defense branding.
See, here's the thing. I don't care.
I don't get his point. What crime would be committed by a brandishing? What do you mean?
No, what I'm saying is, well, we're just talking about brandishing the action, not the crime. But I was saying, you don't know that the amount of people who, show their gun in self-defense outweighs the number of people who show their guns for offensive purposes. Like, gun control reduces that where, for all either of us
You're
know.
not making a lot of sense here, dude, but here's the thing. It doesn't matter if it outweighs it, because for the people who don't have to deal with having a gun shoved in their face, it's well worth it. There are countless numbers, and you're right. We don't know because those things don't get reported, and that's a good thing because those crimes never happened, and those people are safe. They didn't get abducted. They didn't get shot. They didn't get threatened. No one got hurt because the thing never happened.
Again, I'm confused. You don't know how many times these guns that you're talking about, were used offensively for these same purposes, and whether or not those crimes could have not happened.
Why wouldn't we know that? Because wouldn't somebody call the police if somebody was brandishing a gun illegally at them?
I think I can help Dan here. Dan's question is, if more people had guns, there would be more gun-related crime. Is that right, Dan?
Absolutely. If you think that having everybody in a subway car in New York City would lower the amount of gun violence there, that's crazy.
Well, that's not crazy because New Hampshire and Vermont, as we stated, have some of the most or the most guns.
I don't know about Vermont, but New Hampshire is the most machine gun owning state. I don't know how many guns per capita or whatever. I don't have those statistics on hand. But no one ever said that everyone in the subway car should have guns, Dan. So you're putting words in our mouth. The only people who should have guns are the people who want to have guns. And if the people who want to have guns are around and about, then the people who are going to use guns in a criminal manner will be shut down quickly. And the fact that you can't see that, or the fact that you just deny that, is just willful ignorance.
And he said he wants to look at things with a fact basis.
How is it willful ignorance when you're really asking me to take this on theory alone? It's not. You said
it's not a theory.
It's not a theory.
It's not willful.
You're trying to use statistics that actually aren't applicable, and we're trying to tell you that there's a whole state with 1.5 million people where gun violence doesn't happen at the rate that it happens in gun-free zones.
And it's not a theory, Dan, to say that people use guns all the time to prevent crimes.
Well, I mean, evidently and literally, it's in less than 1% of cases.
You don't know. You're not even listening.
No, in 1% of cases where a gun did get used violently.
You have not comprehended. If you're listening, you are not comprehending.
Dan, someone on YouTube has a question for you. How is a woman going to thwart a rapist or a murderer without a gun?
Well, actually, it's interesting you bring that up because virtually no women use guns to stop sexual assault, and according to this same research.
Yeah, and a lot of women get raped.
That's because if you see a woman if you're a rapist and you see a woman open carrying, you pick the rapist picks a different woman. That's just a common sense, right?
Most from people you know. What are you talking about? I mean,
what did you say, Dan? I didn't catch that.
So most rapes are from people you know. It's not like they're a lot more complex than that, but. Again, people in more than
and if the person who would rape you knows that you carry a gun all the time, then they won't rape you.
There were more than 300 cases looked at as far as also the sexual assault aspect of the study went, and it was again none. So I mean, again, you're talking about how.
So these people that got raped didn't have guns. Good point. You're right. Good point, Dan.
You're making our point for us, Dan. You don't even
carrying
realize
a gun prevents rape. But that's what I got. That's what I got from your statistics.
You're saying all the women 100% of the women who got raped didn't have guns. Wow, that's a surprise.
Dan, thank you so much for the call tonight. I hope that you feel like this last part was a bit fairer to you. I mean. You're way up. No, he didn't. And, he's making, as you point out, he's making the argument for us, right? By saying, these same studies show that out of these 300 women who were raped, none of them defended themselves with a gun. It reminds me of this this meme I saw a few weeks ago on one of these social media sites where they analyzed the bullet impacts of all of these airplanes during World War II that made it back safely. And then they reinforced the armor. Everyone was like, okay, well, we need to reinforce the armor in these places and these places. And this one guy was like, no, we need to reinforce the armor in the places where there are no bullet holes. And they were like, what? That doesn't make any sense. It was like, well, the ones that got shot there were the ones that didn't come back.
Yep.
So they're not getting included in our statistics. Right. So that's where the armor is needed. It's the exact same sort of thing here. The people who are not being included in your statistics are not being included because the rapes didn't happen because they were carrying guns that allow them to prevent themselves from being raped.
Yeah, plus Dan is all about his statistics because he's a utilitarian, so he believes that whatever it takes to get to his ends are, worthy.
And you can find a statistic that says anything you want.
Yeah. I don't want to be a statistic, and so therefore those people who don't want to be a statistic should carry weapons if they feel comfortable with it.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts? Should people who don't want to just be a number, another murder victim, carry a gun? 603-283-6160. Hour 3 is coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Kate Fisher. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with a shooting on a subway car. 23 people were injured when a gunman threw smoke grenades and opened fire on a train full of passengers during Tuesday's morning commute. William Denslow reports from the scene of the attack in Brooklyn's Sunset Park.
After a 30-hour manhunt, New York City's Mayor Eric Adams announced, "We've got him." Frank James was, according to law enforcement, arrested without incident in Manhattan's East Village after police received a Crime Stoppers tip. Law enforcement say that Frank James now faces one federal terrorism-related charge and could face life behind bars.
A group of around 40 countries is to ask the United Nations to hold member states accountable if they veto resolutions at the Security Council. It comes after Russia blocked a resolution to condemn its invasion of Ukraine. Sarah Walton reports from the UN.
A group of nearly 40 UN member states, led by Liechtenstein, are hoping to present a draft resolution to the General Assembly for a vote next week. It calls for the UN's member states to hold an emergency meeting whenever one of the permanent 5 members of the Security Council uses its veto power. At the moment, Russia, China, the US, UK and France have the right to block decisions taken by the Security Council. But the veto power has come under increased scrutiny after Russia recently used it to block a resolution that condemned its invasion of Ukraine, a resolution that was later approved by the General Assembly membership with more than 2/3 support.
Finland's Prime Minister has promised a decision on whether to join NATO will come within weeks. Sweden's also looking into whether to join NATO amid heightened security concerns spurred by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Moscow has warned Finland and Sweden against joining NATO. A Twitter shareholder has sued Elon Musk, alleging the Tesla CEO committed securities fraud by not revealing his large stake in the social media company soon enough. Musk's disclosure that he owns about 9% of Twitter sent the company's shares soaring. Ira Spitzer has more from San Francisco.
Twitter shareholder Mark Bain Rosella has sued Elon Musk, alleging that the law required the Tesla CEO to disclose his ownership stake in Twitter by March 24th, but that he didn't do so until April 4th. Rosella filed the lawsuit on behalf of Twitter investors like himself, who sold their shares between those dates, missing out on the 27% spike in the share price that occurred when it became public knowledge that Musk was Twitter's largest shareholder. By delaying the filing, the lawsuit alleges that Musk saved about $143 million himself on buying Twitter stock.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. If you've seen images from the Chinese city of Shanghai on social media over the last few days, you will know that tensions in the city have risen dramatically over strict COVID-19 lockdowns implemented there by the Chinese government. Amid reports of food shortages and rising public anger over the stringent efforts to tackle the country's biggest outbreak since the pandemic began, most of the 25 million people in the city remain under lockdown. But FSN's Beijing bureau chief Patrick Fox says some efforts were made on Monday to alleviate the situation.
There's been a lot of anger and frustration. I think what we're seeing today is possible signs that authorities are buckling under the pressure amid this outcry over this ongoing lockdown, and possibly also a bit of an acknowledgement that this just can't go on. Residents of 7,000 compounds or units have been classified as low risk, and they've been allowed out of their homes, but not outside of their immediate compounds. There is still a lot of concern about the spread of the disease, and authorities said that they couldn't afford for people to gather in a, quote, disorderly manner, and that would jeopardize epidemic control measures.
There have been 27,000 confirmed COVID-19 cases in Shanghai, and the outbreak comes at a time when the government in Beijing is still committed to achieving a zero COVID policy there and in many other cities across the country. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
Our main news again. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with a shooting on a subway car. A group of around 40 countries is to ask the United Nations to hold member states accountable if they veto resolutions at the Security Council. Finland's Prime Minister has promised a decision on whether to join NATO will come within weeks.
Everyone in a bustling Chinese parade is attempting to elude pursuers. Newly discovered cave paintings suggest early man was battling a lot of inner demons, and a xylophonist is shredding it. This Tuesday, FBI officials disclosed details of a disturbing al-Qaeda plot to just kick back, relax, and savor the inevitable collapse of the United States. Intelligence agencies confirmed the massive coordinated plan involves terrorist cells across the globe, training specifically to take a load off and unwind as America's political infighting, class divides, moral indolence, and environmental self-destruction gradually tear the nation apart.
Our righteous warriors will devote our time to relaxing and really soaking in the infidels' self-destruction. America's cities will be reduced to ruins. The economy will come to a standstill. And we, the blessed of Islam, will kick back, put our feet up, and enjoy the show. It's going to be great.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, where you can weigh in with your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160 if you'd like to do that. Again, that number 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And it's Bonnie.
And I want to say thank you to Ukraine 79, who is tonight's amplifier. This means that Ukraine 79 is a member of the AMPS program. You can find it at amps.freetalklive.com. That's amps.freetalklive.com. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. So if you like the show, if you want to show your support, help us get on more radio stations, get our podcast, more downloads, all of that awesome stuff, check us out, amps.freetalklive.com. That takes you directly to our Patreon. And there you can sign up using PayPal or, all of the whatever methods Patreon supports. That's amps.freetalklive.com. It costs $5 per month. That's all it takes to get you in. And it does come with some cool little perks. There's an AMP-only chat room on the Matrix server. And there's an AMP-only podcast for those people who just want some of the ads removed. Well, there you go. Stop complaining about it. Join the AMPS program and you won't have to listen to them anymore. That's amps.freetalklive.com. We have Steve on the line from Georgia. Steve, you're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, 3 gun statistics I think everyone should be aware of. 1, there's a town in the state of Washington, I'm not aware of the name, but they went in their late 80s, said, hey, you can't have a gun here unless you get a license through us or you do this or that. Well, there's a town in Kennesaw that said, hey, you're idiots. And then they passed a law in Kennesaw, Georgia, that says that you have to own a firearm unless you have a mentally ill person or a felon in your residence.
They said you have to own a firearm?
You have to own a firearm. And guess what happened to crime? So what?
Oh, I just said that's odd.
It's also wrong.
I mean,
to force people to own a thing.
Yeah, if you're going to suggest that crime went down, I'm going to suggest it did not. It just so happens that the police did not arrest people for not owning a gun. But the government passing a law saying you have to own a gun would not inspire me to go out and buy a gun. And then I'd be a criminal for not having a gun.
Well, it doesn't force you. It doesn't force you to go and buy a gun. But what it does is it signals to everyone around you, hey, if we're going to commit a crime, let's go to the next city. Let's go to the next town. So I think that's very important to understand is the perception of gun community, the perception of gun ownership in your community affects crime ownership or affects crime statistics. Second of all, just in universities alone, someone is shot every 9 school days in relation to an attempted sexual assault. Keep that in mind.
So you're saying
You're
saying there was an attempted rape on a school campus and a gun was used to defend every 9 days?
Yes.
Even though most schools don't allow guns on campus?
Exactly.
And where'd you get that statistic?
United States Department of Justice.
Interesting.
What's your third statistic?
Oh, damn, I forgot. Oh, well, take me off.
That's unfortunate,
well,
Steve,
that's the thing.
Because I'm trying to find the second statistic that you pointed to, and I was hoping you could give us the third one while I was doing that.
Well, the thing is, there's so many statistics out there. Dan has statistics, Steve has statistics, and studies, of course, usually get done by people who have an interest in finding a certain result. So
I'm just not a fan of statistics in general. Usually it's government.
To me, statistics are irrelevant, but that's because I approach the issue from the opposite perspective that the utilitarian from Dan does. To me, it doesn't matter if you could, prevent 99.9% of mass shootings or rapes or whatever by outlawing guns. You're still infringing upon the rights of at least one innocent person who has the right to defend themselves and now can't.
And it just so happens that doing it the right way, allowing people to defend themselves, is what ends up stopping crimes.
Yeah, that's true. It does so happen to be that case, but I do agree with Aria that it is the principle that matters. And that, of course, is the difference between a principled person, the people who you tend to find behind microphones on this radio program, and people like Dan who justify any amount of tyranny by whatever statistics are, happening at the moment.
And, they don't count into their statistics the amount of gun crime that tyrannical oppressors, because that's a whole different category in their mind all of a sudden. Cop shootings isn't the same as a mass shooting in Dan's mind just because, that person has a uniform on.
Right, those aren't counted as crimes at all. When the police murder somebody, it's not considered murder because when it's done legally, it's not legally considered murder. The word murder is a legal definition.
Unfortunately, and I'm sorry, Steve, I'm not finding the whatever statistic you were talking about in regard to campus gun violence. I mean, I literally try to find guns used to prevent sexual assault on college campuses every 9 days, and The number one thing I found is what you would expect to find. Guns on campus won't prevent sexual assault from the Urban Institute. And I'm not even going to click it because I can imagine. Sure, you can put forward an argument that it won't prevent sexual assault. I can put forward an argument that it would lower the number of sexual assaults that are committed. Other people can put forward arguments that it would lower the amount of violence that's caused. Others would say, well, it would increase the amount of violence that's caused because now more people have guns or whatever. And again, it's all meaningless to me. To me, it's a simple matter of rights, and a person has the right to be able to defend themselves against whatever the greatest possible threat they're likely to encounter is. And whether people like Dan want to admit it or not, the biggest possible threat the average person is likely to face on any given day is from a gun.
And that's a natural right to defend yourself. It's not a right given to you by the Constitution. It's a right given to humans by nature of being human.
Yeah, and the Constitution was supposed to recognize and protect that right to self-defense, but as we can see in many cities, whether it be New York, Chicago, you name it, San Francisco, they have absolutely destroyed the right to bear arms on these college campuses. If there is a young woman on a college campus who defends herself with a gun in the case of an attempted sexual assault and does it successfully, well, on the good side, she won't be getting raped, but on the bad side, she will be losing her college career because they will kick her off that. Maybe that's a possibility.
I didn't think she probably would go to jail as well.
Depending on which state, but at minimum, she would be likely booted out from the school.
I wanted to say this because you mentioned New Hampshire earlier and, people trying to rob banks or whatever. That was one thing, even being from Mississippi, where we have the same constitutional carry down there, and if just probably not as many people are armed in Mississippi, but a large number of people are armed, and you just see guns everywhere, and you don't think anything about it. Even in Mississippi, I would never have walked into a bank with the gun holstered on my hip.
Really?
I would have always left the gun in the car, and so would everyone else that I knew.
I've walked into banks multiple times with a gun on my hip.
But only in New Hampshire. And I never thought anything about doing it in New Hampshire because...
I thought about it, but I was like, well, whatever. I'm only going to do it until they tell me I can't. And then there was one bank, actually, that told me they asked me to not wear the gun into the bank. Citizens Bank.
They asked you politely, at least.
Yep.
So that's good. But even then, it's not terribly surprising. Like when I go somewhere, like Market Day a few weeks ago, and I saw almost everyone there who wasn't either a convicted felon or B on some sort of federal probation or state probation or local probation or whatever. Everyone there had a gun on them.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only one of our friend group that just isn't a felon, could own a gun, and just doesn't own a gun. But it's because I've never been trained. You should want to own a gun if you have one, and you should be trained to have one.
Right, which is what is wrong with Kennesaw, Georgia, where that one always gets brought up as this example of this shining, city where, gun violence dropped below zero or whatever. But it's not okay because people were threatened with violence if they didn't have a gun. So that's
weird.
That's not right either. Gun prohibition is wrong. We know that. And forcing guns on people who don't want them is also just as wrong.
I would tend to agree. And Bonnie, you're absolutely right. It doesn't do any good for a person to carry around a gun if they don't know how to use it.
That could actually hurt somebody.
Yeah, I flagged Ian with a gun on the first day I met him.
I would suggest, though, that, someone buy a gun, and even if they don't ever want to learn how to use it, at least learn how to verify that it's empty, and then carry the unloaded gun around with you, because just the presence of the firearm unloaded will deter your likelihood of being chosen as someone's victim.
That's true.
603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
When you're coping with bad news and the news media come calling, and they will, don't clam up. As notorious political figures find out the hard way, the cover-up can be worse than the crime. So get out in front of unfavorable news about your company, your group, or organization, or yourself. The sooner you confront a negative story, the sooner it will be over. Responding as quickly to negative stories as you do to positive ones enhances your credibility. Hiding embarrassing information or lying will do more damage than damage control. Never stonewall. Tell your side of the story, use specifics, and detail what corrective action has already been taken. Respond in kind. If the issue is emotional, don't sound like a cold, unemotional Mr. Spock. For more tips on critical communication skills for the way things are now, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, 603-283-6160 if you'd like to weigh in. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria. Oh, sorry, Ian.
It's Ian here.
It was my turn to do that to you, I guess.
No worries, it happens.
And Bonnie.
And Bonnie, you've been working on a TikTok channel. I guess they're called channels? Are they called channels?
I think so. Profile?
I don't know.
You've been working on a TikTok presence for Free Talk Live, and people can find it at tiktok.freetalklive.com. For those who are millennials and older, that's TikTok with the C's removed, right? So it's just TikTok.freetalklive.com. That's how you can find that. And the point of TikTok, what makes it unique is that it's a bunch of short videos, right? You're not going to find, I don't know, do they have like 30-minute videos on TikTok?
No, I think they expanded it to like 10 minutes. It used to be like just a minute or something, and they've expanded it to, I think, 10 minutes. I could be wrong. It might be 5 or something.
10 minutes.
Yeah, so.
I know when I visited my nephew and I was, hanging out with him and he was watching TikTok videos, I think the longest one I saw was like 3 minutes or something like that. And it was about dung beetles. And, I want to be disappointed about nephew just standing there all day watching TikTok, but he watched a 3-minute long document. The dude now knows more.
Watched the whole thing?
Yeah, he now knows more about dung beetles than I do. So what is there for me to criticize him about?
Because that's the problem with TikTok. Now, I don't know if you've looked at the statistics recently, Bonnie, because what we found out was that the stats only update like once every couple days. Or maybe that's just because we're a low number channel or whatever, we're relatively small. But so you don't get updated stats all the time, but you can check it every now and then. And I think we were seeing people are tuning out after like 16 seconds or 20 seconds.
Yeah,
or something
but that
like
statistic stuck for like 4 days. So I don't know if it's true, but it didn't show that the majority of people were watching the whole video.
Yeah, so the attention spans are super short, but you can see like demographics. So the people that are watching our videos are less than 25, right? It was like, I don't know, 15 to 25, and then.
But still,
we just have to figure out what appeals to people who are under 25.
It's not our show.
Well, that's why I have my secret social media manager who is a zillennial.
You are under 25 yourself, though, aren't you?
Oh, no, I'm 25, so that's the problem. I was born in the 1900s.
She's technically a.
Will you stop saying that?
Millennial.
Yeah, they call me a millennial. It pisses me off. I'm not a millennial. But whatever.
Well, otherwise, you're a Gen Z.
But you don't want to be a
Zoomer,
Zennial either, right?
Yeah, I think there's a little pocket of people who are not millennials and not zillennials. It's from 1996 to 1999. 1996 to 1999.
Could we call that like the snowflake generation?
No.
No, I just mean, where they're all unique. It's like, I'm not one of you. I'm not one of you. I'm my own unique, special thing.
I just think that millennials are... I don't think you are, Arya, because you're a millennial. But I think a lot of millennials are the snowflakes. They're the ones who started this. I have anxiety. I'm 25. I'm 26. And I can't even drive into the city without calling my boyfriend and crying when I get to where I'm going because of traffic. And that's how I think of millennials. And then zillennials are like, nothing matters, dude. If I die, I don't care, dude. And I'm neither of those.
See, all of the millennials I know fall into that last group. I'm one of those nihilistic type of millennials myself, right? I've even got the word nihilism tattooed on me, right? But I'm not depressed about it. I'm happy about it. It's like I could die tomorrow, man. That's not something to be sad about. That's something to rejoice over. Like, I could die tomorrow, so let's enjoy what's happening now, right?
And that's why I like zillennials, as I perceive them more than millennials. But I've just always thought millennials are more privileged and or like they feel like the world owes them something. Like my older sister.
Well, to be fair, the world has gone not out of its way, but a lot of really bad crap has millennials have had to put up with, like the housing crisis, 9/11, perpetual war, the drug war, the escalation of the drug war, the rise of the internet, the centralization of the internet, the control of the internet.
And you're saying all millennials went through all those things, right? I am not a millennial. I was like...
Okay, that's fair.
I was like 10 when the housing crisis happened. That didn't affect me like it affected people who are 10 years older than me. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, because then we were renting, right? That was we had just entered the real world and started trying to rent, and then suddenly, gas prices skyrocketed at around the same time. The housing market collapsed, rent prices shot up, everyone was getting evicted. Our grandfather was getting evicted because he couldn't pay for his health care or whatever. So, I mean... I don't think anyone owes millennials anything, but I get why millennials sort of feel like they got handed a bad deal. And the Gen Xers want to sit on the sidelines about, oh yeah, we were the turnkey kids. I was like, yeah, you guys accomplished nothing, and you left millennials to pick up the pieces of the disaster that the boomers caused. So thanks for that, right? Gen Xers are correct about that one thing.
Boomers are the worst. To be fair, boomers are the worst.
We can all agree that boomers are the worst.
I don't know. I don't think it's fair to categorize people into these generations. They're individuals.
It's silly.
They're generally true. They're not true of every single person, and I know that. But
I don't think it's even generally true, right? I don't know any millennials that are really the snowflake types.
But all Generation Z people act exactly as Generation Z people, right? We can all agree on that.
No, I don't know enough of them.
If you mean Gen Xers, I will give you that.
No, I meant Generation Z. Like, they're all smoking vapes. They all have, like, one pink stripe in their hair. They're all smoking vapes.
That's because vapes are the thing now. It doesn't happen. I don't know if it's like a Generation Z thing. It's just vapes are the new technology, and they're the young people, so that's the way it ended up.
But see, that's the disconnect of the nihilism among Gen Z and the millennials, right? Because the millennial smokers were nihilistic about it, like, yep, this is killing us. That's kind of the point. We want to let's get this show on the road, man. Bring get those death bells ringing or whatever. Where what millennial or Gen Z is doing, they're quote smoking, but it's not going to kill them. They're just
flavored water.
They missed the point of smoking, which is, yes, we know this is going to kill us. Thank you for that PSA. We knew that. That's why we did it.
It's a very special Free Talk Live.
But you're absolutely right. I mean, these aren't meaningless generalizations because it matters way more the circumstances where one grew up than how old one was when one was born.
I think that has changed a little bit. There's a lot more overlap between people who live in different places now because of the internet. That's why all Generation Z people are the same.
I don't think they're the same, though, right?
Cannot by any means be the same. They must be individuals. Although I do agree with you, Bonnie, that there does seem to be a thing amongst primarily younger people than me who are always about, oh, my anxiety, oh, my depression, oh, me, I've got all these problems. And it just wasn't there when I was growing up. I never heard anyone tell me about their anxiety, ever.
You make a good point. I mean, when you go to Twitter, if you see someone whose Twitter bio is filled with anxiety, PTSD, and just a litany of mental health disorders, chances are they're going to be a millennial. And they're also frustratingly going to be LGBTQ to some degree.
I don't know.
I'm telling you, man.
Maybe they're more likely if they're LGBT. I don't know.
From what I've seen on Twitter, and I say this as the resident trans person in the room, if someone lists in their Twitter bio that they're LGBT, there's almost certainly going to be at least one, if not more, mental illness up there with it.
You know what is the weirdest one I think I've seen is people list that they're autistic in their Twitter bio. Like, why is that like the most important thing about you? Autistic, mom.
But the anxious people weren't born that way, so we need to blame their parents, which would be the Gen Xers or the boomers in that case.
603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The United States has announced an additional $800 million in military aid to Ukraine as the country tries to defend itself from more assaults by Russia in the eastern part of the country. Here's Pentagon spokesman John Kirby.
Up to an additional $800 million, tailored to meet urgent Ukrainian needs for today's fight as Russian forces shift the focus of their ruthless aggression now to eastern Ukraine.
In a statement after a phone call with Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, U.S. President Biden said that the package includes artillery systems, artillery rounds, armored personnel carriers, and unmanned coastal defense boats. U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen has warned China over its relationship with Russia.
China has recently affirmed a special relationship with Russia. I fervently hope that China will make something positive of this relationship and help to end this war.
Speaking to the Atlantic Council, Yellen called on China to pressure Russia to end its ongoing war in Ukraine. She also argues that staying on the sidelines could harm China's standing in the global economy. Beijing has not joined U.S.-led international sanctions against Russia. Police in New York have arrested 62-year-old Frank James in connection with Tuesday's shooting on a subway car. 23 people were injured when a gunman threw smoke grenades and opened fire on a train full of passengers during the morning commute. FSN's William Denzelo reports from the scene of the attack in Brooklyn's Sunset Park.
There are some glimpses of information that have come out from law enforcement. First of all, the message from the police commissioner is that she says that some very concerning posts were put online by Frank James, some referring to life in New York, some referring to homelessness, some directed at the city's mayor, Eric Adams, as well, prompting Eric Adams' security detail to be tightened as well. When it comes to other information we're learning about Frank James, well, we know that, according to law enforcement, a gun that was allegedly used in this shooting came from Ohio. It was bought at a pawn shop back in 2011. And we also know, according to police here, is that they were aware that he had a number of arrests in the past, dating back back to the 1990s, including 9 felonies here in New York City alone. Of course, ultimately, law enforcement now have him under arrest, and now the focus can be on determining a potential motive as we wait for his arraignment due on Thursday.
In other news, U.S. markets end in positive territory for the first time this week, with shares and airlines leading the way. Investors now look to the busy corporate earnings season to assess the impact of rising inflation. From Bureaus Worldwide, this.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. As always, you're invited to join the discussion. Share your thoughts and opinions. 603-283-6160. If you would like to weigh in, that's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And Bonnie.
And I don't know if Bonnie was choking up, but I was obviously choking. And I tend to agree with Ian on this. The whole generational thing, it's silly. I almost certainly have a whole lot more common with, Ian and Mark Edge. Well, maybe not Mark Edge, because he's old. He's quite a bit older. But despite being a millennial, I think Ian is Gen X. I'm not entirely sure.
I'm kind of on the border, sort of like how Bonnie's on the border of Gen X on the border of Zennial and Millennial. I'm on the border of Gen X and Millennial.
Despite all of that, I have a lot more in common with you than I do what we see of most, quote, millennials who are out there, talking about anxiety and stuff like that, because that is, the millennial stereotype. And I have no doubt that there are the stereotypes come from somewhere, right? So I have no doubt that there are plenty of millennials out there screaming about that sort of thing, but it's just not something I see. And it's probably not something I see because I don't associate with a lot of people who cry about their anxiety all the time. But
I can't. When somebody cries in front of me, I'm just like, I just don't know what to do.
That depends on why they're crying to me. Like, if they're just crying because they're sad, or it depends on my relationship to them, right? Like, if it's my girlfriend or something, like, okay, but if it's like just some random friend who's having a nervous breakdown and I've hung out with them like once, I'm going to get out of that situation. Because, oh, that's my phone. I'm sorry. I've got to go. Do you have call your sister?
I'm not trying to say like I'm better than somebody who would cry in front of me. I just seriously don't know what to do. I think it's like my upbringing or something, like my military dad or something. That's fair. I don't know what to do, and I'm horrible with it.
But see, that probably makes you different from most people on the fence between millennial and Gen Zers, right? Because the millennials were the generation that was all, no, it's okay to cry and be masculine, right? Wasn't that the millennials who did that? I don't even know, because all of this doesn't really mean anything. It's just a neat, interesting way of categorizing some people where they sometimes share some characteristics, and that's really the most that can be said about it. But we do have Jack calling from Ocean Shores about the matter. Jack, you're on Free Talk Live.
Just a few things. First, I think that we could get rid of the police and a volunteer.
Get rid of the police?
Get rid of the police, and we could police ourselves better than they do, the government.
Oh, yeah.
Just volunteer. I think it'd be a much safer world. I'd be much less likely to, shoot up a train station if I knew everyone had a gun.
I mean,
because you're smart.
Even if everyone didn't have, I don't think people having guns is going to be what deters. Honestly, it's not going to be what deters the average person from committing a crime. Right. It doesn't matter to me what the possible consequences are. You say, you could rob this bank and get away with it, or you can shoot up this train and get away with it. Okay. That's not going to cause me to want to go shoot up that train and saying, if you shoot up this train, you're going to die. They're going to shoot you back, or you're going to get arrested. You're going to go to prison. None of that is the reason why I choose not to shoot up a train. I choose not to shoot up a train because I find that the idea morally repugnant.
Well, you're a moral person.
If you were a psychopath.
I think that most people are psychopaths, and that the...
You think most people are psychopaths?
No, aren't psychopaths. Sorry. I think that most people...
Say no.
I think that most people are moral people.
Yes.
And that,
that's why the world is good, and that's why, for the most part, we don't have insane violence everywhere we go, because most people are good, and they understand that in order to get somewhere in life, they have to treat other people relatively well. We have to interact with one another without hurting each other, and then we all benefit from that.
If you're a psychopath and you just want to hurt someone, you will be deterred more by shooting up a place where you know people have guns.
Correct. As long as you're intelligent enough to know where you are and know a modicum about the area in which you exist, then you would make a decision to not go and commit violent crimes in an area where people have guns, and you would make an effort to go to the areas where you know that they don't. Now, there are the stupid people that have no idea where they are. They don't know anything about what's going on around them, and obviously those people are going to get cut down, and they will be easily dealt with if they try to do something, violent.
And the mentally ill have been purposely disregarded by the government in some weird, you call it conspiracy. They do need more help. Instead, they medicate them. It's such a conundrum. They know they're out there. They imprison them. They get crazier. They put them on medications that are just like our vaccines, unproven. And then, they go out there and shoot people, and they're like, why are these people doing this?
Yeah,
the kids are doing it. But last night, it's like say a message to David from New Mexico, nice one. He was picking on me the other night. Jack from Ocean Shores. You say jacking it in Ocean Shores.
Oh, that's right, he did, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say that I thought it was hilarious. I was the gay busboy, he said. So we were laughing our butts off. So I just would not, David, good job. That was funny.
Well, thank you so much for the call.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I had forgotten that David did that. It was funny the first time, right?
Yeah, he did it too much. He overdid it.
Yeah, so, that's where he lost me on it, but it wasn't the worst thing I'd ever heard from David.
It also made me laugh because I didn't understand what he was saying at first. I was like, yeah, Jack. Yeah, Jack in Ocean Shores.
We also have the Law Dog calling from Michigan. Law Dog, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call. As I mentioned before previously, Chris Markowski has a watchdog on Wall Street, and he said that those sanctions that Biden, the initial sanctions they put on, didn't take in effect for 45 days. Well, tomorrow will be the 5th day of those sanctions actually being enforced.
And these are the sanctions against Russia?
Yeah, sanctions against Russia.
Interesting.
Yeah, I found it quite interesting there. So we're only looking at day 5 and on the sanctions if they win. And I don't. How can they do any good in 5 days? I mean, this is just total insanity. Nothing could be done in that period of time. And you have to remember when they were stacking all those tanks and artillery at the border of Ukraine, it took them a month to do it. These sanctions should have been kicked off by, at that time.
Well, I don't agree with sanctions because, as we have pointed out, sanctions will hurt just the people of Russia. They will hurt the people of the United States, and they will not do anything to stop the war. They won't do anything to actually harm Putin. But
sadly,
you bring up an interesting point, and apparently there is something here that says that all existing contracts for Russian oil must be phased out within 45 days, and this was from early March. So that, I guess, was one of them.
And that's assuming they actually phased them out, right? I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen a deadline in regard to this Ukraine mess and not really knowing whether or not it actually went through. I remember
this is a threat against, I guess, people buying oil. So presumably they're going to do what they're told.
Okay. Well, either way, it's the market reacted to the existence of these sanctions more than it did these sanctions themselves, right? And
sure.
And that's why we saw gas prices increase the way they did, even though we don't get that much of our gasoline from Russia.
Well, and what we really saw over the last several weeks was this voluntary sanctions that all these mega corporations put into place without any mandate from the state. They just said, oh, well, we're good little corporate citizens. We're going to punish you, Russian people, and YouTube shut off monetization for the average Russian person that had a YouTube channel, even though many of them are against the war. And then, the credit card providers cut off the entire continent or whatever.
Imagine if corporations and everyone on Earth held the American people accountable for all the wars the American government has caused.
Yeah, that didn't happen, though.
It wouldn't be pleasant. That's for certain. 603-283-6160 if you want to weigh in. Again, that number is 603-283-6160. Thank you so much for the call tonight, Law Dog. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Who is playing dress up as a superhero? Ninja.
Yeah.
A border ninja.
See, that would be the problem. Somebody else would dress up like a pirate, and then there would be a war.
Yeah. Just the pirates duking it out.
Wait, well, what do the pirates have against ninjas? Ninjas and pirates are like matter and antimatter. They can't be together.
Okay.
I have a feeling the ninjas would just whoop it up on the pirates.
Are you kidding? Pirates, man.
Oh, the pirates do have cannons. They have the long-range attack ability, but once you get in close...
It's hard to be tougher than a pirate, though.
The pirates are certainly tough, but the agility I don't think is there.
Lose
they sit around on a
lose
ship
a hand, lose a leg, you can still get 200 people to be afraid of you as you stomp around with half of your, an eye patch, one hand, one leg. You stomp around half a person, and you're still commanding 200 people.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to mymagicmud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. mymagicmud.com, FTL20.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Hi, I'm Derek J. I don't want a politician to represent me. To me, government is the idea that one group of people can coerce everyone to comply with an edict or face increasing punishments up to and including death. Despite perhaps the most noble of intentions, the best government services are a far cry from what could be provided for by voluntary interactions. Besides, the people who call themselves the government wage wars and put peaceful people in jail for crimes involving no victims. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you can find us online at freetalklive.com. There we have a number of services that you can look into. There's our social media server. We have a chat server. We have a bunch of cool stuff like that. And of course, there's links you can find to our TikTok, to our Odyssey, to all of that great stuff. That's freetalklive.com. I would recommend you join our Mastodon server. That's a decentralized, federated Twitter clone sort of thing. It's very similar to Twitter. You can find it at social.freetalklive.com. That step-by-step instructions on how to sign up and get you started there. It's a really cool feature where you don't have to worry about getting censored or shut down because people don't like what you say. As long as you're not a bot, you can say whatever you want. So with you in the studio tonight, it's Aria.
Ian.
And Bonnie.
And we actually have David from New Mexico on the line. David, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yeah, well, if that was too much jacking, then what is the proper amount of jacking?
It depends on how much time a person has on their hands.
How much what in their hands?
How much time? Time, David. How much time? Yes, time.
Is that what you named it?
Yes.
Oh, cool. How do you? Is that TIME or THYME? Does it have to do with the flavor?
Lost me there.
Yeah, see that's the issue we had with jacking it in the first place, David. Is that it's like you have a joke and then you just continue kicking that joke until it's not funny anymore.
Yeah, but it was seared into your mind, and that was the main goal. It was seared into your mind, and you proved it tonight, Aria. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're very welcome there, David. I mean, by seared into my mind, I don't know if you're still with us. By seared into my mind, do you mean that I had forgotten that it happened until the caller...
Like a tuna fish. Oh, no.
Are you all right, David? Are you having a stroke?
No, I'm crazy. I'm crazy, remember? Psychiatrist Aria?
I don't recall ever calling you crazy.
Well, you should listen to some replays then.
Okay.
Where did you get your MD, Aria?
I'm not a medical doctor, David.
Well, then why are you diagnosing people on the radio?
What are you talking about, dude?
I don't know. I don't remember her calling you crazy.
I was talking about jacking, but then you changed the topic. Why did you do that, Aria?
I asked if you were having a stroke, and I don't remember now why I asked you that.
Because you can only talk about jacking for a limited amount of time on broadcast radio.
Right. No, I'm not presently having a stroke. That was earlier. Okay. Wait, stroke. You're not trying to be. You're not.
David, thank you so much tonight for the call. That was a good one. I'd like to end on that one. But we have another story that we've had for a few days that I wanted to get into.
Psychopaths. And Bitcoin.
And Bitcoin, yes. And evidently, the average Bitcoin investor is a calculating psychopath with an inflated ego, according to scientists. And this is great.
I could see narcissist, but I couldn't see psychopath.
A team of experts recently surveyed more than 500 people to uncover the personality traits that are most common among crypto nuts. They identified that many investors exhibit signs of, quote, the dark tetrad, a group of 4 unsavory traits made up of narcissism, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, and sadism.
Okay, well, I'm a proud narcissist. Me and my friend used to say, we need to change the narrative because narcissism is an undervalued thing in society anymore. It's like everybody likes hating themselves, and I just love myself, and that's why I do better in life than most people.
I mean, you're right in that narcissism sort of got turned on its head, and where that they feel better about themselves, they think more highly of themselves, the more they hate themselves. It's sort of an inversion of virtue where the more social power one has, the weaker one actually is. Like they criticize the white man as being the strong cultural power in the United States, but in reality, it's the LGBTQ people and the minorities that wield a disproportionate amount of power. So you're absolutely right. Like narcissism, it's not a bad thing, and it gets turned on its head where in order to be the exact opposite of narcissists, they're like, oh, well, I just hate myself. I'm so ridden with anxiety. I'm such a miserable person, always kicking myself, all of that stuff. But it's
still all about them.
Yeah, they're masochists like that. I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this, but they enjoy that self-flagellation, like the Catholic
priest. That's why everyone wants to be a victim.
Woe is me.
Yeah. It makes them feel good about
anxiety,
themselves,
etc. To go back to the other topic, but they said they've sort of contradicted themselves in the first 2 sentences of this article. At first, they said that the average Bitcoin investor, and then they said they're talking about crypto nuts. So that's a big difference, right? Like if you're nuts about crypto, by definition, you wouldn't be the average crypto investor. Somebody who's true. The average crypto investor is probably not a psychopath by definition because they're average, and psychopaths are a very small percentage of the population. So who are we talking about?
These people who write these propaganda hate pieces about crypto don't actually know what they're talking about with crypto at all.
And who did they even interview? I mean, New Hampshire is sort of, a bastion of cryptocurrency usage, and I don't know anyone who they asked about this. I mean, some of maybe not
where'd they get the 500 names?
Yeah, maybe not the most well-known Bitcoin investors, but certainly some of the most impactual or impactive. I don't know what the word is. So in plain English, that means dark tetrads have an inflated sense of self-importance and derive pleasure from the pain of others. And that doesn't sound like anyone I know.
I don't understand if you derive pleasure from the pain of others, you would love the dollar.
Yeah, that's true. Well, they take pleasure in knowing that others will suffer, but they won't because they're in Bitcoin, right? So they won't suffer.
Who are these people?
I don't know because all of the crypto nuts that I know are telling people, hey, get away from inflation, get away from the dollar so that you don't suffer.
Yeah.
It's more of an evangelical thing.
So many people that like Bitcoin are evangelical about it, like you're saying.
They asked 566 people to complete personality surveys, as well as answer questions about their attitudes to crypto. Of the participants, 1 in 4 reported that they owned crypto, and 2/3 showed an interest in crypto investing. All 4 dark tetrad traits correlated with an affinity for investing. According to researchers, dark tetrads are partially drawn to crypto because they are prepared to take risks, whereas digital assets such as Bitcoin are infamously volatile. Bitcoin is extremely low risk. I don't know why in the year 2022.
That's not true. It's not low risk. I mean, it is risky because...
It's risky in some short-term, narrow-sighted views, right?
Well, there's no guarantee that it's going to go up. I mean, we certainly have seen it go up overall in the last 13 years of its existence. There's no doubt about that. But it could hit a brick wall tomorrow.
But how is that... I mean, saying I'm going to keep my money in the dollar is... it's higher
not
risk.
Safe either.
It's less safe.
I think I said Bitcoin is relatively low risk, didn't I?
You did say that.
I mean, it is relatively low risk.
I disagree. It's a high risk investment.
In the last 12, 13 years, in the grand scheme of things, all we've seen Bitcoin do is go up. It goes down for periods.
With you. That's
if you keep your money in the dollar, then it's by definition a higher risk because your money is, it's going to go down.
You are guaranteed to lose with the dollar. There's no doubt about that. And you don't know how quickly you're going to lose because it's all up to a bunch of politicians as far as how fast they decide to inflate the money supply. I'm not saying the dollar isn't, and not a risky investment either, but at least you are able to predict what the dollar is going to do, which is to say it's going to go down. Whereas Bitcoin, you don't know it's going to always go up. You have history that suggests it, but there's no guarantee of that.
Machiavellians who are good at deception and take a calculated approach to achieving goals, like crypto, quote, primarily because they distrust politicians and government agencies, Dr. Wang said.
When did that become a part of a psychopath? Didn't we look up on this?
That's not the psychopaths, that's the Machiavellians.
Yeah, but they're saying that's the dark triad of being a psychopath, right?
Well, for people who haven't read and understood Machiavelli and what Machiavelli wrote, that's probably what they would say. But the whole Machiavellian thing is not about, seizing power and becoming corrupt. It's a warning about what power does to people and to avoid power.
But isn't it true that psychopaths are attracted to positions of power?
Yeah, so they'd be sort of the opposite of an actual Machiavellian, I would argue.
I don't know enough about Machiavelli.
Just the idea of what they said, taking calculated steps to get yourself ahead in life, I don't think that is hand in hand with being a psychopath.
He goes on, many crypto supporters believe governments are corrupt and crypto avoids government corruption. So he equates being Machiavellian, I would suggest rightly, but most people would not understand it that way, to wanting to avoid government corruption. It's all very strange.
It's confusing as hell to me.
I think they're making connections that aren't there. I'm going to post this article on our social media server. You can find that again. That's social.freetalklive.com. We're out of time for tonight, but we'll be back same time tomorrow. You can find us online in the meantime again at social.freetalklive.com. That's social.freetalklive.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you